This episode is rated M for mature audiences. The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect those of the PFC Entertainment Network or any of the affiliates that make this show possible.
This is the Pure Fury Creations Entertainment Network.
On tonight's episode, the Knicks and the Hurricanes, both crowned world champions, we're going to look at their series. Can the Detroit Tigers build any momentum heading into this next part of their schedule? And UFC makes history this past weekend. All that and more as the Sports Reel podcast begins right now.
If it's in the headlines, on the first page or the last, it's fair game here on the Sports Reel podcast.
And we welcome you to the real reason why Tuesdays were indeed invented. This is the Sports Reel podcast, live on the PFC Entertainment Network. Along with Tim Sheridan, I am Jason Clouse. Eric Mendal is on his way to the studio as we speak, but we have two other special guests that are going to be joining us here, Tim. I'm very excited about bringing these guys on for the first time here. Would you like to do the honors?
Yes, I would. Tonight, we got the gentlemen from Michigan Sports and Entertainment. We got Dan Murphy and Coach Barnes joining us. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Let us know how you're doing.
Appreciate it, fellas. Yeah, we're fired up to be here. Dan and I have been talking about it for quite a while, so thanks for having us. We're excited to chat with you.
Yeah, guys, thanks so much for having us. We're really looking forward to tonight.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that we were actually able to finally get this done. I know we've been talking for a little while and stuff finally opened up. Like, we get a busy schedule going on, so I'm glad that we could get you guys in because I've been seeing your guys' stuff for quite a while, and I really enjoy it. So I'm super excited to finally have you guys on the show.
We appreciate that. Yeah, I see you guys like our stuff, so I'm always really appreciative. I reached out to you guys, I think, originally because I had seen so much of the clips that you guys had going on, and kind of gave me some ideas to do different things with our stuff and how we cut our clips up and different things. So had an eye on what you guys have been doing. You guys have been doing some really great stuff as well. So really looking forward to tonight and connecting here. And this should be a really fun conversation tonight.
You know, if I can add to that too, what I like about you guys is you guys just chop it up. I mean, you're not really you don't sound like the talking heads on the radio or other podcasts, man. We're just, you just talk ball, right? And that's kind of what we like about it.
Listen, I don't know if you'll find a more polarizing show than this one, if I can be honest with you. And I'm a big part of that. Like, Tim is the conscience of the show. We do appreciate that, and we hear that quite a bit. You know, it's like, this is why I really enjoy the podcasting thing, because you get to network, you get to meet new people, cool people, and actually have some intelligent conversations when it comes to sports, because I don't know how it is for you guys, but trying to have a decent sports-related conversation with the general public tends to be a challenge from time to time. At least it tests my patience, and maybe I just put too much high expectations on people, but be that as it may. We have a lot to talk about here this week, gentlemen. We're going to be looking at, of course, the Detroit Tigers. We're going to be looking at the two new world champions crowned in the world of sports, that being the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Knicks. We're going to be talking some football here later on in the show, but let's start off this week Tim, big event that took place for the first time ever. A sporting event took place on the lawn of our nation's capital at the White House. UFC 250 went down on Sunday night, and man, a lot of anticipation when the announcement was made that this event was going to happen. How was the layout going to be? What was the vibe going to be? And of course, the security, right? Because this was not going to be something that was going to be, they weren't going to be putting tickets on sale through Ticketmaster for everybody and anybody to have access to this. It was a very concentrated block of tickets available by invitation only. 4,000 people were in attendance, including President Donald Trump and many other, officials and dignitaries, celebrities and athletes. Very cool setup that they had there at the White House. I didn't watch the event, but I saw enough clips of it. Tim, you said you did see this. What was your takeaway with this event? Because I'm telling you, it made a lot of history.
Well, let me tell you, first things first, that flyover they did at the beginning with the national anthem being sung, man, if there's nothing that makes you feel any more patriotic than that shit, you know what I mean? But at the same time, this event was there was a lot of anticipation built up for it, but there was a lot of people that were a little upset about it because they felt like there should have been bigger cards on the thing. But let me tell you, these guys stepped it up because all of these fights ended in TKO. There's not a single damn fight that went to a decision. The judges did not have any part of any of these. These guys laid it all out there, and they kicked ass. Let me tell you, the fighting was amazing. My perspective, it was a little hokey, to be honest. The walking out of the Oval Office, the walking out of the White House, it kind of dragged on a little too long, and it kind of became a little redundant for me. You know what I mean? But the patriot in me goes, damn, the White House is right there in the background, and these guys are kicking each other's asses right on the front lawn of the fucking White House. Like, this is kind of cool, but at the same time, I felt it might have got a little hokey there for a little bit, just the same thing with every entrance. But what they gave us, in my opinion, was a phenomenal card. Like, these guys went out there, and I saw there were some awesome fucking fights on this card. Let me tell you, like, I ended up watching it back twice because it was so exciting, especially, Gaethje at the end there, that main event. Damn. When he just rocked Ilya and ended up taking him down there. Like, Ilya's face was destroyed. But this card, like, everybody just laid everything out on the line. And, right down to Sugar Sean O'Malley when he hit that final punch and he ended up saluting as that boy was going to the ground. You know what I mean? Like, although, to be honest with you, I'll ask you guys' opinion on this because I think I was talking to Dan. I think you said you were going to rewatch it back, stuff like that. I think that fight might have been stopped a little too early, to be honest. I don't think it was over right there, but it is what it is. But in my opinion, awesome event. And it's been a little bit since I watched a UFC event. This one stood up to where it should have been. And for UFC 250 on the lawn of the White House, this card ended up, it was bigger than what they could have imagined. Like, just the way that this thing turned out with 7 TKOs, it was just phenomenal. Now, Dan, you said you were going to rewatch this thing back. What did you think of the whole thing?
Yeah, what impressed me the most was the production value of the whole thing. Just trying to put a UFC event on the lawn of the White House. That's an absolute logistics nightmare. And I just thought from a production value, I thought it was phenomenal. Kind of went off without a hitch. You mentioned it got a little hokey, though. Donald Trump and Dana White walking out, it felt like they were never going to get down there. Yeah. It just felt like that walk was lasting forever. You could tell Dana White was feeling a little awkward about the whole thing, just kind of his body language a little bit. But overall, man, you mentioned it, like 7 TKOs. Like, every fight ended in a finish. You can't ask for anything more than that as a fight fan. Every fight was entertaining. Every fight ended with a finish. Yeah, man, I really enjoyed it. And I was really happy for Justin Gaethje. I've been a big fan of his for a long time. Going back to seeing him at the UFC pay-per-view at the LCA when he fought Eddie Alvarez. He's just never puts on a bad fight. Man, he just goes in there and gets in the pocket and just throws down. Man, he throws down every time he goes out there, and really happy for him because he's been interim champion a couple times. This is the first time he's like an official world champion. So really happy for him, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great card.
Yeah, no doubt. Like Gaethje, that guy puts on some wars. Like, to be honest, and like it's cool to finally see him get up there and actually just win that title outright. Coach Barnes, did you catch his event at all?
Yeah. I've seen the highlights, and to echo what Dan said, and Tim, kind of what you said, like got a little bit hokey, but you know what? Like, what did you expect from like Donald Trump and Dana White, right? And it's not a knock on those guys, but you just knew it was going to be something spectacular like that. And the spectacle to me is something that stood out. I mean, this sport has grown immensely, and like you said, even if the fights weren't all that great, it still would have been a spectacle, and a lot of people would have watched it and enjoyed it. But the fights were phenomenal and fantastic highlights. So I enjoyed it, and like you said, the flyover was incredible. I enjoyed it, and it shows why that sport is just growing in popularity every day.
Yeah, I'm really starting to feel like this is like, especially now, and we've talked about this a bunch of times on the podcast about these streaming companies taking over this, but I think UFC's smartest move was to go to Paramount to be able to offer this across. Technically, if you pay for Paramount, which isn't that expensive, we broke down these prices on the show about one, and this is one of the more affordable, which actually works out really well for me because they also carry a lot of the PGA coverage that I watch every week. Like UFC was smart as hell to jump on the Paramount deal because I can't imagine how many people signed up to be able to watch, how many customers they got just from adding UFC to their repertoire. And like, this was a free event. We look at this 2 years ago, this would have been $80 to $100 to just buy, and nobody's got to buy it anymore. You only spend, I only think I spend like $11.99 a month for Paramount. Jason, you want to add something to this? I can see it. You're boiling.
No, I'm not boiling, but you bring up a good question here, a good point. This was not available on pay-per-view. UFC has gotten away from the traditional pay-per-view model. So I'm going to ask you this. Based on what you've seen with this event, would this have been worth $80, $90 price tag to watch it on pay-per-view because of the hype that surrounded it?
Now, the card that they set up, besides like the Gaethje fight, that one that's a big card right there. The card itself, probably not. Like, a lot of people probably wouldn't have bought into this because there wasn't any huge names. Like, I know we got a McGregor fight coming up here pretty soon. Like, that would have been one that you would, people would spend the $80 to $100 on. This card itself, I don't think people would have spent the money on for it. But what they gave us, to me, was worth $80 to $100 on the card. But you don't know that going into it. You don't know these guys are going to leave everything out on the table and just go to war. Like 7 fights that just went to a war and 7 TKOs. Like, you don't get the cards like that. Like, it was phenomenal on how hard these guys fought and to the finish. It's crazy. Like, you don't see that ever. You don't ever see fights that end with 7 TKOs. You always got some weird judge out there. People are questioning whether the judges got it right. You didn't have to worry about it on this card. So like, was it worth the money in the end? Yes. Would you have paid for it beforehand because of the card? Probably not. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Dan, Coach, do you have anything to add in on that?
Yeah,
Like, would you have
I think I
paid
mentioned
that?
for me, like I was a big UFC fan. Kind of like the Chuck Liddell days, Rampage Jackson. Those guys. Even throughout Conor McGregor's run and Ronda Rousey and John Jones, like all those guys, I was a big fan of it and got their pay-per-views when they fought. And it eventually got to the point where they kind of just priced me out, to be honest with you. Like, once they went to ESPN and you had to subscribe to ESPN Plus just for the opportunity to pay $80, $90 for the pay-per-views. I'm like, I can't do this every month. I'm paying almost $100 a month to be an MMA fan. It was ridiculous, and I kind of slipped out of it for a while. And now that they're on Paramount, I think it's going to bring a lot of people back, including me, because like you mentioned, you're only paying, 10, 11, 12 bucks a month for Paramount. You're already getting a lot with Paramount anyways, but now you get all the UFC events. I think it might bring quite a few people back, and I feel like this event could have been, a huge launching point. I know they've had some big events on Paramount Plus already, but I don't think to this extent and with this much media fare and this much of attention, this might be like the true launching point for them on Paramount Plus because, like I said, this definitely kind of brings me back into the fold, and I got a feeling it's brought a lot of other people back in the fold as well.
Yeah, I think because of the spectacle of what it was, and at the White House and the president's involved, the average UFC fan, MMA fan would have paid that amount of money for the pay-per-view event. And admittedly, Dan's the MMA guru in our organization, and he's the biggest fan. But yeah, I mean, it was intriguing nonetheless. And to Dan's point, I think average fans I'm more interested in it now after kind of seeing that and knowing that it's more readily available to me. So yeah, I can definitely see fans doing that.
No, like 100%, especially with Paramount, because we've covered this before too. Like, I love Paramount, and that was so smart because anything Taylor Sheridan that he's put out has been money. You know what I mean? And gold, like whether it's the new show Dutton Ranch, or even Marshall's that just came out recently. You know what I mean? All those shows are just bangers. And I know they got Lioness coming out here pretty soon. And then now you add UFC on that. That's the best value for your money right there, to be honest. Like, Paramount is the place to go. Like, if you can salvage $11-12 a month, get Paramount, because it's worth every penny now, especially with UFC on there.
I do wonder too, with the potential merger of Paramount and Warner Brothers, how much that's going to affect things too, if there's going to be more added onto it. Because personally, I'm a big AEW fan, wrestling, so I'm wondering if that's going to factor in. Maybe AEW ends up on Paramount. I don't know.
You're talking Jason's language now. You are talking Jason's language. Jason does a whole wrestling show also, so I think that was one of the promos you see later. He does a Fatal 4-Way show. So Jason's right up the alley of the wrestling thing. Actually, to be honest with you, if you ever watch the show, you'll realize me and Jason were actually former professional wrestlers, both of us. So Jason actually ran a promotion for quite a few years, and I worked for him about 20 years ago, and that's how I know Jason. Wow. And then we came together to work together all these years later in this atmosphere. We're still entertaining people, just it's a little easier on our bodies.
Hey, so not to put you two on the spot, but have you ever wrestled one-on-one, and who would win? And don't be shy.
We never had a one-on-one match, but if we did, I would have whooped his ass.
Actually, to be honest with you, Jay, we never had a one-on-one, but we were in the ring once.
Yes.
And I believe you did pin me. So, but let's be honest with each other. It wouldn't end like that now, brother. You're just an old ass bald man now. I'm in the best shape of my life.
Just because there's snow on the roof don't mean there's no fire in the furnace. You feel me? So, it's funny that we mentioned the wrestling aspect, because as you guys know, as most people do know, UFC and WWE are owned by the same company now. And I chuckled a little bit because, Tim, you said, part of this presentation with UFC 250 was a little hokey, a little long with the entrances. The ironic part is UFC tagged in a couple of WWE's producers for that aspect of the presentation. So it does not surprise me that that's the kind of response that it got. It was very heavily influenced, because if you're watching WWE's product, especially their premium live events, which took UFC's spot on ESPN, you see a lot of these long, drawn out dramatic entrances and things of this nature. So I was curious to see what the WWE influence was going to be. And again, I just saw clips, so aside from the flyover, but I doubt they had anything to do with that part of it. That has to be a very calculated and well orchestrated thing to happen, have happen.
Speaking of the entrances, did you guys ever watch Pride FC back in the day?
I
out of Japan.
Shows, yeah.
They used to do those grand entrances. I remember Vanderlei Silva had one of the most incredible entrances, because he would come out to a sandstorm, and he'd just be incredible. And I always wondered why the UFC didn't do that. didn't do like more of the kind of the pro wrestling style entrances, because
For that
there's a
reason.
lot to that. There's a lot of people that go to pro wrestling events just to see the entrances and to sing the songs of the wrestlers as they come out. So I always wondered why UFC never kind of went that route. It's always been kind of a generic walkout.
Because UFC was desperate to keep their product separated from professional wrestling, especially when Brock Lesnar went to UFC. Because Lesnar, of course, got his start in WWE, went to UFC, and like Dana White is he's a funny dude. Like I respect him as a businessman, but as a person, I kind of think he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, wow.
Just me personally.
Incredible promoter, though. You can't deny it.
No, for sure. From a professional aspect, man, he's nailing it, and I do respect that. But he wanted so desperately not to have UFC in the same conversation with WWE. And so when this merger happened a couple of years back and it all went under TKO, I was over here and I had a lot of conversations. I'm like, Dana White is fucking mad as hell right now. He's fuming. But now he has no choice but to acknowledge WWE what it is. You know, he looked at it as being fake and all this other stuff. I'm here to tell you, Tim will tell you, anybody will tell you, anybody who calls a professional wrestler fake is fundamentally fucking wrong. Okay, we're athletes too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
predetermined. It's not fake, but it's predetermined.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Shit hurts.
Sure.
Shit
It
hurts
does.
bad. Trust me.
All right. Anything else we want to throw in here with UFC 250 before we move on?
Not with UFC 250, but man, I'm looking forward to this Conor McGregor return. Like, I want to see if he comes back just even a little bit what he was before. You know what I mean? Because he's one of those people, when we bring up the entrances of the UFC, and the reason why it got hokey is because they don't know how to do the entrance that way. You watch WWE and they have these big elaborate entrances and stuff like that, and it's the way that they enter a building, the way that a professional wrestler enters, you know, the down to the ring, you know, it's entertaining. These guys were just straight up walking, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't that entertaining. There was music, but there wasn't a lot of shenanigans going on. Nobody was playing off to the crowd, you know what I mean? It was just a long, and maybe it was just too long of an entrance is what it was, you know what I mean? When it's taking you a minute to get down to the ring because Gaethje came out of the Oval Office, that's a long fucking walk from the Oval Office all the way down to that ring. And it's like, there's just not a lot going on right now. And it's good to see you guys. I appreciate you coming on the show, but the show's over. We'll see you next week. No, I was just fucking around because Eric finally showed up. No, but yeah, that's probably the issue, is that it was too drawn out too long. You know, I mean, they need to get a little bit more animated. If they get animated, it would be good to go.
Yeah,
you know,
Tim, I grew up with the WWF, man, so I'm a Hulk Hogan fan, Macho Man Savage, Junkyard Dog, all those guys, right? What was it about those guys? Their personalities and their aura, right? I mean, that's what made those guys a lot, you know, people gravitated to them, was just as much their personality as anything that happened in the ring. So I kind of agree with you.
Yeah.
And that's what UFC, to me, was at its peak when Conor was, you know, the double champion, and the personality that, and he would cut promos like a pro wrestler in his press conferences. But that's what got people in. That's what got people to watch. You either loved him or you hate him, but either way, you were going to watch him.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the same way with Ronda Rousey too. She was one of the big stars as well at that time. They're kind of missing that a little bit. And you mentioned Conor McGregor coming back. I don't think he's going to be anywhere close to what he was, you know, back in the day. But just to have him back in the fold, and to have him back cutting those press conferences and cutting those promos in those press conferences, you know, as I mentioned, you know, with Paramount has brought some people like me back. With Conor McGregor coming back, and he goes on all these interviews and does the whole media tour, that's going to bring some people back as well.
Oh, for sure, because he was that animated piece that they were looking for. Eric, while you're here, before we get off UFC 250, did you watch it?
I've seen the highlights. I did not watch it. I totally forgot what was going on. But I'm more like flabbergasted about Jason's opinion about Dana White. So I want to look at that bald man right now. It's blinding me too.
And I heard Jason's favorite person ever brought up, Ronda Rousey.
You're the problem.
I'm the problem.
Yeah.
Why am I the problem? Dana White's the one who's an asshole, pal, not me.
Have you met him? You don't know. You're just going off what you see on TV, so stop it.
His press
Fucking stop it.
conferences, every other interview that I do. I don't know. I feel like I got him pretty pegged. Good to see you, Eric.
Good to see you too. Yep, right back at you.
I should start doing that on our show, Brian. Just giving you the finger and inside the coach's office. When you start talking about Jared Goff's not a top 10 quarterback, I'll just start giving you the finger.
Who says that?
I've been waiting for it.
No, here we go. Let's hold that conversation until a little bit later on in the show. But we will make the transition here to another one of our Detroit teams, and that being the Detroit Tigers. Not as good of a week last week as they did the week before, but still, there's still signs of life. There's still things to get a little bit excited about here with the Detroit Tigers. They went 3-3 last week. Big wins over the Minnesota Twins on Tuesday, 10-4. Minnesota bounced back 6-4 on Wednesday. Detroit wins the series with a huge 11-0 win over the Twins, and then came Cleveland. The Guardians, man, continued to be a thorn in the side of the Detroit Tigers. The Guardians took Friday and Saturday 3-2, and then 3-1, and then on Monday picked up a big win in their series opener with the Houston Astros, 9-3 outing there. They are going to continue that with the Astros here tonight. They wrap it up tomorrow. And then it's the Chicago White Sox for the weekend series. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they will be in Detroit. And then on the heels of that come the New York Yankees. Christ, the evil empire is coming to the Motor City at the start of next week. Gentlemen, Dan, we'll start with you. We haven't had, obviously with this being your first time on the show, we have sat here on these airwaves since the start of the season, and it seems like we have been up and down the roller coaster with these Tigers. Started out pretty promising, went through a slump. Now they're starting to show some signs of a resurgence, getting some key pieces back off the injury list. At this point, we are halfway through June. The All-Star break is about a month away. Where do you see the trajectory for the Detroit Tigers? Can we build momentum and at least go into All-Star, perhaps at best at 500? Is that possible?
I think the opportunity is there with them getting quite a few of their pieces back. Very concerning to see Torres. It looks like he hurt that oblique again last night, because he's been such a huge factor to their lineup, and then they're being able to hit again. Like, they were just so bad in May, and I think a lot of that had to do with both Torres and Carpenter being out of the lineup. As soon as they injected those two guys back in the lineup, boom, you're starting to see them hit again, because that lineup started to get a little bit deeper and took some pressure off of some guys. Of the two of us, between me and Brian, I'm a little bit more hopeful than he is. But I think they just dug themselves too big of a hole in May. They're going to have to do like an unprecedented run to get back into the things. I mean, they're 12 games under 500. I mean, I know the American League is down, and that's what kind of keeps my hopes up a little bit. Oakland has the last wild card spot at an even 500 record. So that kind of leaves the door open a little bit, but they have to climb over every single team in the American League to get to that point. There's going to be a couple other teams that are going to get hot as well. So from a roster standpoint, I think they have an opportunity to play some really good baseball, but to be 12 games under 500, it's going to be a tough hole to climb out of.
I totally agree with you on that. They have themselves a substantial hole that they have to crawl out of. Coach, what's your takeaway here with the Tigers? Based on what Dan says, they have the opportunity, but do you see this team making a significant run to climb out of the hole and at least make a run towards a wild card spot?
Yeah, guys, I don't. And I hate to say that, there's 40 games until the trade deadline, right? So it's not even, to me, it's not the All-Star game, it's the trade deadline that we really need to look forward to. Because if they're in a situation where they do go on a run, okay, you can buy, and then you can have some fun, and the last couple months be really interesting. Or they're completely out of it, man. And Dan and I have talked, like, if that's the case, then it's got to be a fire sale. I mean, the rebuild is, unfortunately, it's back. I mean, just get rid of as many guys as you can. The worst thing they could do is play like kind of what they're doing, right? Like that purgatory, like that, go on a little streak, right? You know what I'm saying? And then slump back, because they've dug such a big hole that they don't have any leeway to have those lapses. And so 40 games left, like, do we really think they're going to go 30-10? You know, even if they go 25-15, they're still under 500 at the break, or at the trade deadline. And yes, I know the American League, especially the American League Central, is down. It's not very good, but there's still a lot of teams in front of them that they also have to rely on to play poorly as well. And it's not that they can't get some good stats, some good at bats, some good innings from guys that haven't gotten that. But do we really think Zach McKinstry and Wenzel Perez and Jahmai Jones and, go down the list of guys that are struggling, Spencer Torkelson, are all of a sudden going to get hot all at once for the next 40 games? I just don't. Like, it's the type of game where you are what you are at some point. Like, they've got a lot of guys that are not, like, developing anymore. They are who they are, right? They're at that age where they're not a prospect, right? They are who they are as a major leaguer. And as much as I love to sit here and say, yeah, absolutely, I just don't see it happen. And then Dan mentioned it again. Gleyber Torres, something happened again yesterday, right? So it just feels like they go one step forward and it's two steps back. And they're still in a position as an organization. They've got the one chip on their roster and in their organization that could set them up for years to come. If you want to use an analogy, think of the Matt Stafford with the Lions trading him to the Rams. Tarek Skubal, I know he's a rental, but gosh, like you put him on some teams, like you can't guarantee anything, but gosh, you put him on certain pitching staffs, man, that organization thinks we're a lock to be in the World Series. And so they're set up nicely no matter what. Not that fans want to hear that, but I'm almost kind of like, for the long-term health of the organization, they're better off not making it and trade those guys, and let's go back at it again in a year or two.
And guys, just to add to what Brian said, like we've been saying this a lot on our podcast, they either have to be all in or all out at the deadline. They can't go halfway with it. If they're going to push all the chips to the middle of the table, then they got to go in and they got to go buy a right-handed bat, to supplement their lineup and try to really go for it. Go for the division, or at least go for a playoff spot and try to win the whole damn thing. If they don't feel they have that team, or they can't make that move to get a bat that can take them over the hump, they have to be all out. And anybody that's on a one-year deal has to be gone. Because they have to, I don't want to call it a complete rebuild, because I think that if they do this right, and they have a fire sale and they do this right, they could still be very competitive even next season, assuming we have a season. But going into the next season, they could still be very competitive if they make the right trades and make the right moves. And Brian brings this up a lot. Like, the trades they make, it needs to be guys that are close to being ready. Like, if they're going to get prospects, it needs to be guys that are close. Like within the Tigers organization, guys that are similar to Max Clark. I'm not saying it has to be like top 5 prospect level, but guys that are at least close to playing, that could potentially be starters next season. It can't be 18, 19-year-old prospects that are in single A. We can't wait around 3-4 years for these prospects that they get from Skubal, Mize, Jansen, and these guys that are one-year deals. It's got to be guys that are close, and you got to build around the McGonagalls and the Dinglers that are showing that they're not just good players. They're potentially some of the top or even the best players at their position. So they got some pieces right now, but they need to be able to build around it if they end up having a fire sale.
And Dan and I have talked about a long time, fellas, that we could see it where Scott Harris thinks his championship window isn't this group of guys. Like, his history, he's drafted some high school dudes, right? Max Clark, Bryce Rainier, who's raking in single A, they're not, to Dan's point, I don't think they're going to be in a massive, 10 years from now rebuild, kind of like the Red Wings, but that's another story, right? But, I had to go there. Whoa. But no, they've got some guys that can get healthy out of the pitching staff. Jackson Jobe, Reese Olson next year that you don't have this year. So, there's a lot of ways you can win in baseball. And as much as, yes, obviously it's hard when you give up the best pitcher on the planet. But that being said, man, it's to Dan's point, either if they're not all in, then they got to be all
out. So let me ask you this about Tarek Skubal, because he's been a topic of conversation here for a while now. given what has been reported that he's looking for with this new contract, at one point he was wanting a 10-year deal for a stupid amount of money. And given his history with the 2 Tommy John surgeries, and he just missed a bunch of time having roaming bodies, as they call them, removed from his throwing elbow, would you put that kind of financial commitment into him if you had the checkbook for the Tigers, or would you trade him out?
I mean, if I'm the Dodgers and you can afford that and still be okay, or the Yankees, sure. I don't think the Tigers and Chris Ilitch, I mean, yes, they signed Framber Valdez and Javi Baez a couple years ago, so yes, he's willing to put in the money, but I don't think he's in a position, and I don't think they're in a position to do so. And me personally, no. Like the pitching, like, you know, anytime guys he's had a few surgeries. Remember, he had a surgery earlier in his career as well in his arm. I mean, there's a lot of risk there, and you know, and it's not so much even the amount, like the years. Like if he wants years where it's like year 5, year 6, year 7, like you're asking for trouble. But I don't think the Tigers are in a situation and are comfortable dealing with that, because remember, they dealt with it toward the end of Miguel Cabrera, right? And he was breaking down a little bit, and that was that big contract. And so I don't think they're willing to do it, no.
And my thing, guys, is always you pay for a guy what you think he's going to do within that span of the contract. You don't pay for a guy for what he's done in the past. And they made that mistake with Miguel Cabrera. Brian brought it up. Those last 4 or 5 years were tough. Those were tough to watch. He was the highest paid player on the team, and he was he was a below zero WAR player those last 5 years. We've seen it with Tarek Skubal. We've already seen the injuries in what should be the prime of his career. Like, I think you're getting the best 3 years of his career. The previous 2 years, obviously this year is a little bit backed up because of the injury, but I think down the stretch we're going to see the best of him. Like, you've gotten the best, I think, of what Tarek Skubal is going to be. So why would you now pay him $400 million for the next 10 years when he already has injury concerns? I just don't think they're a team that can withstand that. And we saw it with Cabrera, and I don't want to see that happen again. And I think they can spend that money elsewhere. But I always I thought they should have traded him before the season, to be honest with you. But they decided to go all in, and they got to continue that until they officially know that they're out, and then you got to move them.
So go ahead, Jason. You got
you go ahead, because I know they brought up, you know, Miggy, and I know you have an opinion about this. We've talked about this part of it.
Yeah, no, like, and I brought this up as an example of why we shouldn't pay Tarek Skubal, you know, or assign him to a 10-year deal, because the Miggy deal did not turn out as good as we had hoped. But at the same time, I don't think I would have changed that deal. You know what I mean? I mean, Miggy is going to go into the Hall of Fame now as a Tiger. They paid him a bunch of money to stay here. And in retrospect, it really wasn't a lot of money compared to today's standards. What the hell is that noise?
I have no idea.
Is somebody like basing out in my house?
That's what it sounded like.
Like, what the fuck was that? Sorry. My whole house started rattling like somebody fucking has a system rolling somewhere.
You got an earthquake going on over there?
Yeah, I don't know, dude. Like, it was weird. But yeah, like, in retrospect, that wasn't that big of a contract in today's money. You know what I mean? So, like, and I wouldn't have changed it, because Miggy was the heartbeat of that team for a long time. So to me, he deserved to get that big contract, even though it hurt them. You know, like you said, the last 4 to 5 years. I don't want to see them do that again, especially with a pitcher. You know, I mean, a pitcher is a different position to where you're not going to get that longevity out of a pitcher that you do out of, you know, a DH. You know, and so, like, especially after already 2 Tommy John surgeries and another recent surgery, like you said, I think his best years may be behind him, and we could be very wrong. You know, like, look how long Justin Verlander's gone on. And speaking of Justin Verlander, he's about to be back here pretty soon. So that's where, like, I'll bring some positivity to this whole thing and go, hey, I don't know if we're out of this thing yet. Like, and I always usually look at the bright side of things, and I don't give up to that last moment, because right now I'm looking at it. We're 9 games back in the Central. I think they're 4.5 games back out of a wild card spot in the American League. You know what I mean? They're still in this thing to an extent. You know what I mean? There's a lot of baseball left to be played, and with a lot of starting pitchers starting to come back. I mean, Skubal is back now. It's going to take him a little bit to fully work back into that rotation and start throwing his best stuff again. His last outing that he just had didn't look the greatest, you know what I mean? But he's fresh off of an injury. Verlander's about to be back. There's still a lot of baseball to be played. I don't want to throw in the towel quite just yet. Now, do I think this is a team that could go on and win a World Series? I don't think so. Like you said, I think they need a right-handed bat. So in order to do that, but I've been saying that since last year, and these bastards just didn't want to go out and spend money apparently and go get a bat at the trade deadline last year, because that's the one thing they were missing was run support. You know what I mean? Everything else was working great last season, except they could get runners on base. They couldn't score any damn points. Like, they couldn't get anybody in. You know what I mean? Like, that is a problem, and it's a problem that is continuing now. Now, a lot of this losing has been because the majority of the starting pitching rotation has been injured, along with a lot of other key players on the team have been out with injury. We're starting to see them roll back in a little bit. Let's hopefully people can stay healthy and they could possibly get back into this thing. So I'm going to be the positive guy in this and go, hey, this ain't over yet. Do I really feel that inside? I'll never tell you. But I somebody's got to be positive here. Eric, what do you think about the whole Tiger situation right now?
You got the All-Star break coming up and the trade deadline. You just got to – there's a lot of baseball to be played yet, and you can't overthink it. If you're going to get rid of Skubal and try to get some prospects, you got to do it now. Because if not, you're not going to get anything for them. Yeah, you got a lot of guys coming back from injury, and it's starting to show. Your June is definitely a lot better than May, and if you can keep it up, I think you can at least make a wild card spot, but I don't think you're going to go very deep in the playoffs, honestly.
One thing I would say, guys, the guy that needs to step it up, and he's pitching tonight, is Valdez. They give the guy a ton of money before this season. He's supposed to be the ace after Skubal's gone, and they kind of made their decision. They kind of made it without saying it by signing Valdez to a 3-year deal. Like, he's going to be the ace after Skubal's gone, and he's supposed to be at least the number 2 pitcher. He's got to step up. Like, and he's playing his old team and his old house in Houston tonight. It's a game they absolutely need to win. I think they need to sweep this series if they're serious. And Valdez has to step up, and I think it has to start tonight. He's got to shove tonight and pitch well. He's got to start pitching up to that contract.
Yeah, and Tim, to your point about Miguel Cabrera, like, I do agree. Like, it's in a perfect world, like, these guys would be finishing their career in Detroit, but Tarik Skubal has not shown any indication that he wants to resign here, right? I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. And then they're 6 games out of that final wild card spot, and they're 7 teams ahead of them. So to my point, like, I've said this before, they don't have the luxury of going through any little bit of a slump. I mean, it's got to be like 8 out of 10 pretty consistently, you know what I'm saying, for now until the trade deadline, for them to be in that position to be able to do that. Because if they're stuck in that purgatory and they decide, you know what, we are going to go all in and then don't make the playoffs, I mean, they're set back. For that to me is a big setback for them.
Yeah, that's the worst possible scenario. Is if they go all in or just don't do anything at the deadline and then don't make the playoffs and they don't get anything for all these guys that are on 1-year deals. So you haven't added any young prospects to eventually go with the Max Clarks and the Dinglers and the McGonagalls. You haven't gotten anybody, and those guys just all walk. Like, that is death. Like, that could set the franchise back years if that's how it turns out.
Yeah,
now, I'm willing to make that sacrifice of not trading the guys if that means they get in the playoffs and make a little bit of a run. Now, obviously, that's no guarantee, but that would be the worst possible scenario, is they don't make any moves and they don't make the playoffs.
A guy that's been, but, Dan brought up Valdez, who really needs to pitch better. You know who else was brought back and was kind of a fan favorite who hasn't pitched well, I mean, a little bit more lately, is Jack Flaherty. Like, at one point, dude was 0-6. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was a key part of the Dodgers World Series team, the first one a couple years ago. And so to get him back, I mean, I was fired up. And then that guy just hasn't done well. Like, there's so many guys that, you don't want to say had a career a year ago, but were fantastic a year ago, that just aren't playing up to that level. And they don't have to play up to that level again, but gosh, like, we talk about how baseball has changed a lot over the years, fellas, and how, like, a 300 hitter, like, really doesn't exist anymore, or they're rare, right? I mean, we want guys that just hit above freaking 210 in this roster. Like, you look at the bottom of the lineup, how many guys are hitting under 200? Like, I'm sorry, you're not a playoff team if your 7, 8, and 9 hitters are all hitting less than 200. Like, That, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a problem. Like, even in the '06 Tigers, which I go back to a lot, that's one of my favorite teams ever. They were getting contributions from Craig Monroe at the bottom of the lineup, Brandon Inge, Alexis Gomez, like guys you wouldn't think of. And the Tigers aren't getting that from any of those guys. And so that to me is why I'm so down and negative, so to speak. But just maybe I'm just kind of being realistic. I hope I'm wrong in a month, guys, but that's where I'm at.
You didn't love seeing Kerry Carpenter getting taken out in the 4th inning for a 140 hitter and Jemai Jones?
No, so that's something else, guys. Like, yeah, right? Like the AJ Hinch, we feel like the moves he's made over the years with, the analytics and whatnot and pinch hitting, the matchups and things like that. When they worked, they worked. But God, I can't think of a move all year where we're like, hey, that's a good managerial move right there, AJ Hinch, by pinch hitting that guy. And especially guys like Kerry Carpenter, who historically the last few years in the playoffs has come up so clutch. Like, to me, he's earned that opportunity. Like, okay, he might not be great versus lefties, but I'd still rather watch him get in at bat against the lefty than Jemai Jones.
100%, 100%. And you guys have brought up some great points here, and I do appreciate that. We're going to be breaking all this down and more baseball headlines this weekend, part of a big supersized Saturday doubleheader. 1 p.m. Vinny and I are going to be live on the air for ball games, where we break down all things MLB. 1 o'clock right here on the PFC Entertainment Network, where you're watching the Sports Reel podcast. All right, let's move on here. Eric, this is something that I've been wanting to talk with you about. We have new champions in the National Hockey League.
I don't want to hear about your athlete's foot on the butt, dude. I don't want to talk about it.
My God, what is wrong with you? The Carolina Hurricanes are the 2026 Stanley Cup champions, having eliminated the Vegas Golden Knights. I did watch the last game of this series at work, as a matter of fact. Listen, Carolina and we said it from the onset of the playoffs. The Eastern Conference was Carolina's to win. I took it a step further and said the Stanley Cup is Carolina's to win. We were surprised when we got the Vegas Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup finals and not the Colorado Avalanche. But to their credit, Vegas really, they didn't show up just to be there. But if you looked at the last game the other night, you would think that was the case, because Carolina just slammed the fucking door on them. Vegas couldn't do shit with them.
It was one player that did it.
Bussy?
Yep. They changed their goaltender, and the undrafted goaltender started, I think 3 games of Stanley Cup series and all that, and that's what did it. Before he got in the net, I think Vegas had it, because they were killing it. They were controlling the puck very well. They were in their Carolina zone a lot. As soon as they changed that goaltender, it was a whole different game. He shut him out in Game 6 to win it. Mm-hmm. Shut him out, and that was not a thing against the Vegas Golden Knights this whole Stanley Cup playoffs. So as soon as they changed, like I said before, months ago, a goaltender can change a series, and it is proven right there.
You talk about Game 3, the double overtime game, and it was that game where I'm like, okay, Vegas is to be taken seriously, because anybody else, I felt like, would have just kind of thrown the towel in and, okay, let's wait till the next one. Vegas is not built like that. And I expected Colorado to represent the West in the finals, not because I'm a Colorado fan, their hockey team anyway, but I just felt like they were the better team. Like, it seemed like they were consistently on top of the Western Conference. But Vegas, being who they are since their inception into the league, have demonstrated this grit, this determination. Like, they want to be taken seriously. And Game 3, man, they on a big stage, they demonstrated why they deserve to be in the Stanley Cup Finals. But again, Carolina just that they were not going to be denied. And when it was all said and done, they were holding up Lord Stanley's Cup, and it was a good series. I don't know if it was as good as I thought it would be, but a good one nonetheless.
It would have been the series I thought it would have been if Vegas would have won 6 and it would have been 7.
Mm-hmm.
That like if it went to a game 7, I feel like we just game 7 would have been a whole different ball game because it's game 7, everything's on the line. But Bussy coming in there and those 2 games he played or 3 changed the whole series, and the Golden Knights could not figure him out. He had their number, and that's what changed this series, and that's why they won it in 6.
Some of those saves that
ridiculous.
They were ridiculous. No man should be able to move like that.
Nope.
Like, especially when he's all decked out in his pads and all that shit. I'm like, I don't know if this dude's human. I really don't. I
think he's at least like 6'2", I think, too.
Yeah, he's a bigger dude.
Yeah.
And to be able to contort his body the way that he does, and you're right, Vegas didn't know what to do with him.
Nope,
there was nothing they could do.
They couldn't. He had their number, and that's what sealed the game.
Let me ask you guys a question, Jason, if that's all right. Looking at when I was watching that series, looking at the results, like Vegas was a game 2 overtime win away from them winning the next game in overtime, going up 3-0.
Yep.
Like, imagine, isn't it crazy how close, when you think about things can change and shift? Because I agree with you guys. Like, Carolina looked like the better team throughout the series, but I wonder if that dynamic changes at all mentally. I mean, it has to. I think when you're down 3-0. But it just goes to show you how close sometimes winning and losing can be at that level in that type of with the stakes that high.
100%.
Coach, they kind of mentioned that during the broadcast on ESPN in Game 6, especially. The Vegas Golden Knights just ran out of gas. That's what it come down to.
They hit a brick wall. They hit a brick wall in Bussy. That's what happened. They didn't run out of gas, because if you watch that Game 6, they were physical, they were fast, they just could not catch a break with that goaltender.
Until halfway through the second.
Well, because then you had a 2-0 lead, and then it was time was of the essence, and they, unfortunately they accepted their fate. You played until the last whistle, but after that empty netter, you already knew. And Carolina kind of already knew after being up 2-0. It's hard to come back with being down 2-0 in the end of the second, going into the third.
True, and I'll grant you that, but kind of piggybacking off what Brian was saying, the psychological part of this. I mean, I could tell just by watching their body language. Like when they got halfway through the second period in Game 6, Vegas, I don't know, it seems like they slowed down a notch. Like they were mentally beat. It was just a matter of letting the clock run out. Like some of them, I felt like had already conceded. This ain't our year. This ain't our night. We're going to have to reconvene. Like they were already packing their bags for the off season. It felt like they were just going through the formalities. Like now, a couple of them, they gave their all. I mean, and you could tell they were skating hard. They were hitting hard. But man, oh man, Carolina, once they brought Bussy in, and like you said, it changed the entire dynamic of that team. And that dude has set himself up pretty going into next season.
100%. Maybe it was just, the fact is, like, you worked so hard through an 82 game season. You make you make the playoffs, you win, you make it to the Stanley Cup, and maybe just at the halfway through the second, it just set into that disappointment. Like I can only imagine what that feeling is, getting so close to glory and then not tasting it. Like I've said this before, Connor McDavid being there 2 years in a row and not getting it, and then losing the gold medal to the USA. That dude's just full of heartbreak in the last 3 years, and I feel for him. He's a Canadian guy, but I feel for that man. Like, come on, like when is he going to catch a break? And he's everyone says one of the best players in the NHL, and I believe it the way what I've seen from him. But I can only imagine any final game, Super Bowl, World Series, Stanley Cup, NBA championship, if you're on the other side of it, I can only imagine that's demoralizing. It's just like you put all this work in. It's like, okay, I got to look forward to next season. How do you mentally get yourself prepared for that?
Eric, keep in mind too, this season for Vegas, they didn't just go through an 82 game season and then 4 playoff rounds. Like they went through a coaching change with 8 games left. Like there was some drama. There's some drama in that organization that they, that has nothing to do with the play on the ice that they're dealing with, right? And so, to your point, a lot. Just they went through a lot this year. That's tough for them. Mm-hmm.
You guys mentioned, especially with Carolina, I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest NHL fan. I focus on the Red Wings, but outside of the Red Wings, I'm not the biggest hockey fan. So my question for you guys is, like, was he looked at as potentially getting some games or getting some playoff time or playing time, like in the playoffs and especially in the finals? Or was this really like a complete surprise, like a guy that just kind of came out of nowhere?
I think it's more of, pardon me, that their goaltender was just kind of giving up too many goals and just not perform what they need to. And sometimes you just got to say, hey, we're making a change. Dude was next one in line and stepped up. Because that's what I've seen, because he was an undrafted free agent. So it's like, hey, we're going to put him in. I don't know much about him, but with what I've seen, he seems like a pretty solid goaltender. And when his time was to shine, he let everyone in the NHL world know, I'm here. I don't know why I could not get that out right there. That was
this guy can't fucking talk right now. What the fuck's wrong with him?
I don't know. That was difficult. Jason disappeared. He must have to go poop or something. But I don't know. I don't really know much of what was going on with him. But when he stepped up, he stepped up. Just like the famous Tom Brady said, as soon as you get your opportunity, you make the most of it, and he did.
The famous Tom Brady? What about just the regular Tom Brady? Mm-hmm. What about just the regular? I'm sure there's.
He's always going to be the GOAT, no matter what. And Mahomes will never be the GOAT.
Oh, shut up about Mahomes, you bastard.
Mahomo.
Hey, so I got a question for you guys then, as well with watching this series. So like, I'm an old school guy. Like I remember watching the original Winnipeg Jets and the Quebec Nordiques. Right? I'm old, and like the old Hartford Whalers, obviously Carolina Hurricanes, and then we just watched a series, and it was a cool series, Carolina Hurricanes. So the old Hartford Whalers against the Vegas Golden Knights. Did it feel at all, I don't want to say weird, but just like, man, something's off? Because I'm kind of old school. Like I'd love to see, Red Wings, Leafs, or they're in the same conference. No, Red Wings, Blackhawks. Now, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was cool. I mean, good high level hockey's high level hockey, but I'm old school. I kind of wish. It just felt weird to me. Am I wrong? What do you guys think?
I like that Carolina was in it because they are an older team. They haven't won in 20 years, and they've been around for a while. But, like I said, people are like, oh, the Golden Knights have been there. They've already won it. This is only year 9. Well, they did their homework right when they came into the league. They did the expansion draft. They did the draft. They knew what they wanted. They knew the coaching staff. So if they're going to be there and, make it entertaining, hats off to them from the front office because they did it right. Just, unfortunately that, in Detroit, we can't get that right now. And it's very frustrating, but, it did feel a little weird, but I think they earned that respect to be there because, they fought and clawed their way there. And just like you said, with 8 games left, they had a coaching change. They're like, hey, something's not right in the locker room. We need to change it up. And it worked because they made it all the way to Stanley Cup. So, it did feel a little weird because I do like the older teams like the Bruins, the Blackhawks, the Red Wings, like ones in that Carolina, ones that've been there for a while, but still like I do like that the league is expanding, because you have the Kraken and all that, and you got the Golden Knights, and then unfortunately, I think they should have stayed in Arizona, the Arizona Coyotes, but maybe. I think they need to bring a team there because that was always a very good fan base and all that. And then you just got another team in Utah. Right. So I see your points, but it's also, I feel like if you earn your, respect to be there, then you deserve to be there.
For sure.
Circle things back to the Wings guys. This is a quick question for you. Like for me, when I watch the playoffs and especially the finals, like the intensity with the play, and you think about what the Red Wings look like down the stretch, like, their roster and how they're built, they can't compete at that level. They just can't. Like they cannot physically compete with that type of intensity and that type of physicality. And I think that's probably more concerning to me than anything. Obviously not making the playoffs in 10 years, but you just watch them, especially down the stretch with these collapses late in the year. They cannot play at an intense physical level across the board. And I don't know how you can change that overnight. Like, I don't know how that changes within a couple years. Like, it feels like it's a roster, like deep across the roster, it's an issue. What do you guys thought about that? You're maybe a little bit more hockey guys than Brian and I. Like, you watch the Red Wings and look at that roster. Like, how long is this going to take, guys?
Well, when you have a very good defenseman like Quentin Hughes that says he wants to play for Detroit from Michigan, he has 2 other brothers, and I've also heard they've all, it was a dream for them to play eventually all together at one point, and 2 of them are on the New Jersey Devils. But when you have a player like that wants to come here, and your GM that is known for bringing Stanley Cups here, and I don't want to remember Steve Yzerman for what's going on right now. I remember him as the player that, turned the Red Wings around. But when you have a player that wants to come here that's good, and you don't go make a move, and then the trade deadline you go get Justin Falk, nothing against him, but it didn't really seem to make a splash and bring that intensity in the locker room. It's more in the front office in the locker room what's wrong. And like Coach said, they had a coaching change at 8 games left, and look what happened. It brought them to the Stanley Cup. Something's got to change in the front office because, don't get me wrong, the players are playing, but if the mood's not right in the locker room and in the front office and the players know it, it's not going to sit well.
No, I'm right there with
you want to remember Steve Yzerman for what he did as a player, not right now as a
Exactly.
GM. I'm very fearful that he could go out like Joe Dumars went out, where Joe Dumars even won championships as a GM, and he still went out and kind of like bridges were kind of burned, and it still feels like there's still some tension with Dumars and the organization. Steve Yzerman is my all-time favorite Detroit sports athlete, and I just do not want to see him go out like Dumars went out.
It's probably going to be more like Alan Trammell, because you know what I'm saying? Alan Trammell didn't have that success as a manager. Joe Dumars at least had some success.
Had this success, 100%.
Yeah, so
But Tim, what were you trying to get in there?
No, like I'm 100% right there with you. And with Eric, you're bringing up, I think it's probably a front office issue, and you're starting to see that now play out with now Larkin asking for a trade, which I saw that he added some more teams to his.
Well, there's been an offer from Florida. I don't know what's been offered, but I know it's been like a draft pick, and I don't know if we're getting any players.
It better be a damn good draft pick.
Well, they have number 9, so
yeah. But number 9's not bad.
No, but what's that going to get us in this? Just like baseball and hockey, that you got to draft a prospect.
You better stack it up with more than just one draft pick.
Well, that's all I'm saying
for Larkin. Even though I don't think Larkin, like you said, is not that.
He's not a first center. He's a second. He's a very good second center, and if you get him on the right team, you have 2 solid lines and all that. But we also need a center back because we already need another center, and if we're losing Larkin, then we're SOL.
Yeah, but my whole point is you can tell there's some contention in that locker room when your captain is asking for a trade, and something needs to change there with the Red Wings. And I'm not sure if that's Yzerman. You know what I mean? I've bitched over the last few weeks that maybe there's an ownership issue, because we're seeing the similar problems between the Red Wings and the Tigers. You know what I mean? So what's the common denominator? Well, it's Chris Ilitch. You know what I mean? So maybe we need to start looking at maybe Chris Ilitch is tying the hands of these managers or these GMs of these teams and not allowing them to make the moves that maybe they want to make. But we'll never know, you know what I mean? Because we're not in those offices, but I can look at both those teams and go, they both have similar issues. And the only common denominator is ownership, and it's the same damn owner. Like, how do you guys feel about Chris Ilitch?
I mean, he's put up the money finally with the Tigers. I mean, with the Red Wings, like they've changed coaches, right? You know what I'm saying? They've made a few moves here and there with the roster, but the one constant has been Steve Yzerman late, and that's unfortunately, to Dan's point, it sucks that we're viewing him this way at all. And I'm afraid the Red Wings are going to be similar to the Tigers, Tim, and that, like, if, what are you going to get back for Larkin? Like, you're not going to make your team better, I don't think, by trading him, right? You might make your team younger, right? But that pushes, again, their opportunity for the playoffs a few years down the road. Like, if that's what they're thinking a few years down the road, then why keep Alex DeBrincat? You know what I'm saying? Why keep their goaltenders? Like, what's the point? You might as well just push it all back down the road. And that's fearful. And you're right. I mean, ultimately, it starts at the top, and it is a bad look for Chris Ilitch.
I would add too with Chris Ilitch. I was on the bash Chris Ilitch bandwagon for a very long time, but he put the money into the Tigers this year. I mean, they went outside Valdez. Torres came back. Flaherty came back. They re-signed Finnegan. They went out and signed Jansen. They signed Verlander for the hell of it. Like, they put the money into the team. Like, at some point, you got to kind of look at the players, look at the managers. Like, those guys got to perform. And I put the same thing with Yzerman and the Wings. We all begged, every single Red Wing fan begged for Yzerman to come back and the Ilitches to go out and get Yzerman to be the GM. Well, they did it. Yzerman's running the team. We're about to go into year 8, and they haven't made the playoffs, and their captain is asking to be traded. So, like, I understand that the common denominator is Chris Ilitch, but at some point you got to look at the guys that are making the moves and playing the games and put the heat on those guys. Like, the heat needs to be on Steve Yzerman, and that's so tough for me to say because I love the guy. He's one of my all-time favorite athletes, but this is year 8, man.
Especially
like, we're going into year 8 of this thing.
Especially when half the league makes the playoffs in the NHL, right? Like, it shouldn't take 8 years to get into the playoffs. And it's not just 8. I mean, can we sit here and say we think they're going to be a playoff team a year from now? I don't.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of what happens this offseason, I don't. So you're talking closer to 10, 12 years, right? That's baffling and unreal. If you would have told me that, years ago that we'd be in this situation, I'd say that's nuts.
Well, we've talked about Vegas, right? They've made the finals, three times since the Red Wings have last made the playoffs?
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, how disgusting is that?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And this is the Detroit Red Wings, being run by Steve Yzerman. Like, it's mind-boggling to me that we're going into year 8 and we're talking like this, that they might be worse off than they've been in this entire run.
Well, yeah, because you're looking at if they trade Larkin, you're starting over. That's a complete rebuild at that point, in my opinion.
It has
you know
to
what I mean? You're starting over. So, in your guys' opinion, do you think there's any chance they could mend fences and possibly keep Larkin? And Yzerman sits down with Larkin and says, "Hey, what do you need? Let's fix this." Do you think there's any chance that Larkin plays for the Red Wings next season?
I would say it's. Go ahead.
Paul,
0.
I wouldn't say it's a full rebuild if they trade Larkin, but I have heard rumors they might trade Larkin and DeBrincat, and if you do that, then it's a full-blown rebuild, in my opinion. Because then who's next on chop block? Sider? You ain't gonna get rid of him because he's the best defenseman you've had since Lindstrom. So I think if you get rid of Larkin, it's not a full rebuild. But if you get DeBrincat too, you're in a full-blown rebuild, and you're going into year 8 of the Yzerman era, and where are we at again?
Yeah, Tim. I don't think I don't think typically that doesn't work in professional sports, right? When there's an issue and there's a beef between a player and management, rarely does it come to a head and they shake hands and are like, no, everything's good. I mean, I just don't think it's
I would say too, like, this fan base, and I would say most fan bases, but definitely Detroit. Like, you get a player that says he doesn't want to be here, we're gonna make sure you're not here. We're gonna make sure you're not here. Like, like, every mistake, every little thing that he does that isn't playing well, he's gonna hear it. Like, he's gonna get booed off the ice. Like, it's gonna get ugly, and that's how it gets handled here. Like, you remember Prince Fielder when he did the belly flop back into third base, and he had that horrible thing. Well, I got a family at home, and he acted like it wasn't that big of a deal. We made sure he was gone, and Dabrowski traded him that offseason for Ian Kinsler. Like, this fan base will not accept a player or really anybody who says they don't want to be here.
That's a solid point.
Yeah.
That's for damn sure. That is for damn sure. Yeah. All right. So the Hurricanes have done it. They're the Stanley Cup champions. This is how we're going to end the 2026 season for the NHL. That's not the only league that came to an end this past week. The National Basketball Association crowned new champions, and a lot of that success goes to the MVP of that team, Danhausen. Just kidding. All right. In all seriousness, the New York Knicks have done what this city has wanted them to do for the last 20 plus years is bring home the NBA championship, and they did that with a decisive and overall dominating performance over the San Antonio Spurs. I went on record. I said it was going to be Spurs in 6. I was very surprised to see how the New York Knicks handled their business with the Spurs, including a history-making performance where they erased a 29-point hole to come back and win. When that game happened, I'm like, there is not a goddamn thing the San Antonio Spurs are going to be able to do now to derail the momentum of the New York Knicks. And that includes having an alien on their team. But be that as it may, the Knicks are champions. Tim, we'll start with you. What's your takeaway?
Yeah, Tim. What game did they win it in?
I don't know.
I think it was Game 5. I think I said that last week. Game 5, it was going to happen.
Well,
we can go back and watch it if you want.
Yeah, I mean, we could go back and watch it.
Because there ain't no fucking alien on fucking the Spurs because he's human, and Jalen Brunson's let him know he is.
You know,
Game 5. Really? I said it last week.
What I was trying to avoid was New York burning to the ground. So I was really picking the Spurs here because I knew as soon as the Knicks would win,
surprised
they pretty much burned that son of a bitch to the ground. You see the videos? Like, what is it up with fans? When your team wins a championship, you decide to burn the fucking city to the ground. I'm watching videos and they're burning buses. I watched a video where like 4 dudes were carrying the whole hood of a bus away.
I didn't see
what
that.
the fuck are you going to do with the hood of a bus? And why do you have it? What's the point? Like, just being excited your team won. I mean, yeah, I don't have enough room in my garage for a bus hood, but it was. What's up? Jason's gone.
He's got to poop.
He's got to poop. Diarrhea.
Athletes of the foot is getting
diarrhea. Yeah, no, like I don't understand. Like New York, like we've said it a million times. I don't know how you guys feel about the New York fan base, but they're probably one of the worst fan bases in sports. We've said this a million times, and they proved it once again with their team. Which congratulations to the New York Knicks. They played their asses off to beat the Spurs. I thought the Spurs were going to do this because, you know, Wemby, in my opinion, is an alien. He's young. And Eric, let me finish. The Spurs have a very bright future in front of them. And I think the biggest problem for them this year is they actually showed the inexperience in the playoffs, let alone, it's a very young team. So I think in a few years here, Scott just chimed in, there's a pretty bad hailstorm going on right now. So hopefully we carry through this because it'll be hitting us here in about 20 minutes. I think the Spurs showed their inexperience through this, and the Knicks were a little bit more experienced. Now, congratulations to the Knicks. They haven't won this thing in, 37 years?
53.
I think I said 373 years on a clip, but I think it was 37 years since the last time they won a championship.
It's 53.
I think it was 37. If Jason was here, I have him look it up, and I tell you to shut up, bitch, just like I always do, because I'm pretty sure I saw somebody say that. It could be 53.
I know it's 53.
But anyway, don't be talking shit. But the Knicks fans showed out just as New York fans usually do, and they do stupid shit like burn their city down. Coach Barnes, Dan, you guys watch this series? Any input on the NBA championship?
Yeah, I'll go first. And by the way, I want to know who would win in a wrestling match between the two of you, because you guys have been doing it for a while.
I'll kick his ass all day.
He wouldn't stand a fucking chance.
I was going to kick him right in the knees. You're going to go down like a sack of potatoes.
I've already hit him with a baseball bat on this podcast.
It was a golf club, but get it right.
I was drunk. I don't remember what it was, but I hit him with fucking something.
Okay, fair enough. So, Dan and I, one of our best friends is a huge Knicks fan, and he has been our whole lives. And we lived through the 90s a little bit with Patrick Ewing, Anthony Mason, and John Starks, and I couldn't stand any of them. And so, to your point about the Knicks and their fan base, very hard for me to watch this and watch the Knicks celebrate. It was killing me. And Tim, you made a great point talking about the experience of the Spurs and stuff. I think everybody all season talked about how the Western Conference was the better conference and that the Spurs were favorites. But you can't quantify in the NBA playoffs, and we talked about this with the Pistons a lot, you can't quantify how much every possession matters. And at the end of the games, in some key moments, the Spurs made some turnovers and had some costly mistakes to lose games, and even with their superstar Wembayana, right? And you can't measure that, and you can't quantify that. And unfortunately for the Spurs, it hit them at a bad time, and the Knicks made the plays when they had to, and credit to those guys. And you can't deny this either. Like Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges, like they won a national championship at Villanova. And I know that's a college national championship, right? But they had that championship pedigree already. You know what I'm saying? And like I believe that does carry over playing in those situations to the next level as well. So it pains me to say it, but give credit where credit's due. And Mike Brown, right? He was left on the scrap heap as a coach for a long time, right? Got fired in Cleveland and a few, had a few different, popped around a few different places. So give credit there as well.
Yeah, I found it funny that Jason brought up the Danhausen graphic and mentioned him and how Danhausen took the curse off the Knicks. I had commented on a TikTok video. I said, well, if when the Pistons play the Knicks in the conference finals, the Knicks are going to be cursed again because Danhausen's the Detroit boy. He's from the Detroit area, so he would have cursed the Knicks, so the Pistons maybe went to the finals. But I do wonder, like circling back to the Pistons, like that was the series I wanted all year. Oh, yeah. Like going into the season, man, I thought it was going to be Knicks Pistons in the conference finals. And I thought that was just going to be an unbelievable series. I thought it would go 7, and I thought the Pistons could win it with their physicality and the way they can guard on the perimeter with Thompson. Like, I thought the Pistons were a horrible matchup for the Knicks. And I think the Knicks internally were having a little celebration when the Cavs won Game 7 because they knew they weren't going to have to play the Pistons. And the Cavs the wheels just completely fell off when they played the Knicks. And, Brian had mentioned it, like a lot of the talk was the Western Conference. It was almost like the Western Conference was the varsity and the Eastern Conference was the MVP. And everybody was saying, whoever wins the Spurs OKC series was going to be the champ. And sure enough, it was the Knicks that came in and won it in 5 games. Now, the Spurs had big leads in every single game that they lost, which goes back to the inexperience, right? Like they couldn't figure out, how to finish games. And they're going to be a great team. They could end up being a dynasty down the road with how young they are and how good they are and how talented they are. But their inexperience definitely show. But just watching the Knicks win the whole thing, it just shows that, the Pistons aren't that far off. And I do wonder how a series would have gone if the Pistons were able to win Game 7 and played the Knicks, because I think the Pistons would have had their number.
Well, your comment, how you think the Spurs is going to be a dynasty and all that, they could be, but also we've had a different NBA championship in the last 8 years. Mm-hmm. So, like, I'm enjoying a lot of this right now. That it's not a repeat, or the same team there all the time and all that. I'm happy that it's different, and who knows who it could be next year. Could be the Pistons if they fork up some money and go get a shooter because that's what they need. Who knows what's going to happen? But I'm just happy that I'll be honest. Once I seen how the Knicks were playing and they swept, 2 of the series going into the Eastern Conference Finals, I'm like, okay, well, they swept the Eastern Conference Finals, correct? They swept the Cavs,
they swept the Cavs.
Yeah, so I'm like, they swept the Cavs. I'm like, they're just playing different ball right now, and they're all clicking. The locker room's, very good state and all that. Coach is good. Like, everyone thinks the West was the ones that was going to win it. I kind of felt like the Knicks were going to win it no matter what, and it proved to be right because they were just so dominant in those 5 games, even though they lost 1. But to come back from down 29-0 at half, or down 29 points at half, and still win the game, and the Spurs have led 72% of most of the time in the whole series. You got to learn how to finish, 100%.
Yeah, that's definitely the inexperience of the Spurs, and I think, Dan, you're right. I think there's quite a good possibility that may become a dynasty, especially as they add to that team throughout the years here. And Wemby, I mean, that's a generational talent right there. He needs a little bit more experience and a little bit more maturity, I think, as he starts to get a little bit older here. And I think he's going to become, probably one of the greatest players to ever do it. I mean, the guy is an alien. He's 7'5", 7'6", and can shoot threes. Like,
it's not alien.
No, he's definitely an alien.
No, he's not.
They tested his blood. He does not
he's
have
from
human
Mars.
blood. Yes.
Yeah.
If he was an alien, he would have been on Joe Rogan.
He just hasn't had time. He's been busy playing basketball. Okay, just give him time. He'll be on Rogan, and he doesn't like his English isn't that clear, so it doesn't like come across on a podcast that very well. I mean,
I do wonder, guys. Like you saw how the Spurs celebrated, especially Wemby after they won the OKC series. It's almost like they kind of thought they had won it.
Yeah,
they had won the title in that moment. The way they had celebrated, I wonder if they underestimated the Knicks a little bit.
100% they did, because the way I watched it, I'm like, the way, like, you thought, okay, Wemby and all that can block it from the three-point line and all that. He had such a tough time with Brunson. He shot it, like, Brunson did his homework and shot it early and shot it arced it way high where Wemby could not get it a bunch of times. So, like, the Knicks did their homework, and I think the Spurs were like, oh, we got this. Like, oh, we beat the defending champs. Oh, we got this. I think they had a little too much confidence going into it. And they overlooked the Knicks. Go ahead, Coach.
Eric, do you know what it reminded me of? Like, do you remember when the Magic had Shaq and Penny Hardaway and they made it to the finals that year against Houston? Yep. Everybody kind of felt that like that Orlando team was better, right? You know, and their youth showed in that series. That Wemby and everything that happened there. And Scott brought up a good point how they blew the 4 straight leads in the fourth quarter. Like that just kind of shows like their youth and inexperience. To me, right?
You got to finish games, and that honestly, that's what happened with the Pistons too, because they couldn't finish games either.
And I think
game 5, 9-point lead with 2 minutes to go.
Yep.
I think tell me this is how I feel, and tell me I'm wrong. So like I feel like with the Spurs, okay, that's fair, fine. I've heard more than one. Dan tells me I'm wrong every show, so it's all good. This is perfect for keeping the flow. But I feel like the Spurs, like they don't need to add a whole lot. Right? Mm-hmm. It's just getting that experience like they've had and just keep growing from within. Where I do feel like the Pistons,
you need a shooter. You need a shooter to help Cade, period.
Yep, there has to be that tweak and then figure out what's going on with Jalen Duren, right? And how much you're giving him and whatnot. And so,
well, I think guys, a lot. I mean, we saw it with the Orlando series, definitely saw it with the Cavs series. Teams just collapsed inside the paint and took away what the Pistons did so well, especially Jalen Duren. But the pick and roll with Cade and Duren was so dominant throughout the season and really the last couple of years. But without having any shooting on the outside, teams just collapsed and took that away completely and completely took away Duren. Yeah. If they can get some shooters on the outside, like Robinson he was so hot and cold, like Beasley really screwed him. I mean, before the season,
I would say Robinson was more hot than cold. It's just when he was cold, he was ice. He could not make one, but when he was hot, he was on
he's
fire.
Not a great defender to make up for things when he is cold.
No,
it really hurt him. But I mean, just not having that outside shooting, it just really exposed itself in the playoffs. It couldn't be any more obvious, what they need this offseason.
Yeah, you just need to go out and find the number one shooter that's on the market, and if he's on the market or you got to trade for him, you got to trade for somebody.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, keep Robinson and see what happens with Duren. I don't think he deserves a top level contract because as soon as the playoffs started, you shit the bed. In Orlando, you had one good game in Game 7 against Orlando, and it should not have went to Game 7, even though Orlando was a better team than everyone thought because they did have some injuries. But you should have showed up against the Cavs that you played great against all season long. That's where you
one good game in that series. It was Game 6.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's still so shocking to me that they won by 20 plus in Cleveland in Game 6, where Cleveland had a chance to close it out. Mm-hmm. It's one of the most shocking games to me in Detroit sports history. Is that the Pistons came back home? They're 5-0 in franchise history in Game 7s at home.
Yep.
And a lot of those were blowouts.
And they shit.
I remember games at the Palace where like the game was over before it even started. Like the way the Palace was rocking and the way those Pistons teams would thrive on the crowd, like they were blowouts. They would just run the team out of the gym. And for that to happen to the Pistons on their home court in a Game 7,
looks bad.
Absolutely shocking. Like the wheels just completely fell off. It was their worst performance of the season in the most important game of the year. And people say, wow, the wheels just fell off. They were exhausted. They ran out of gas. But I don't know, man. It was just so shocking. So shocking to watch that.
I think the Cavs wanted more. But go ahead, Coach. Sorry.
I think to Eric's point, like, even the Pistons, though, like, they were still young and haven't really been through it. Right?
Yeah,
like,
100%.
I guess a good thing you can take from it is that, I mean, Cade still has another level I think he can get to. And I've seen people talk about that after they got eliminated, right? So, I mean, they're still growing as well. But Eric, to your point, yeah, like there's got to be another shooter. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? At some point, if it's not this offseason, at some point at the deadline next year, or they're going to be like defenses are going to continue to do in the playoffs. Well, what they did to us this year.
Yep, 100%. Because even if I'm pretty sure we've all have watched the Bad Boys documentary. Goes on all the trades they made and all the picks they made. They made a lot of trades, and that's the only way you're going to get there and win it. And they won it 2 years in a row. You got to make a move. So our GM's like, hey, if we don't make it in the offseason, we're going to see who's hot and who's not, and who's on the market. But I think you need to do it in the offseason so you can get that locker room chemistry, and you'll be fine. And then if something comes up mid-season, just like how the Vegas coaching staffs and all that, but it's also happened multiple years, for teams that have won it. You make a drastic change right before the deadline, and then it brings that chemistry you need to get you out of that funk. And I think that's where, like you said, Coach, Detroit is, young and all that, and it definitely helped him. And Cade does have that next level, but he needs a second. He needs his Batman. He needs that Robin to his Batman, and that's where we're at. And if you can keep Jalen Duren, I hope not for a max out contract, because Brunson took less money to win a championship, and he even said it was all worth it. So hopefully Duren has that same mindset. Like, hey, give me a pretty good bag, but I want to win a championship here where, you have the Bad Boys and you have the go-to-work Pistons and all that. Let's bring a different era of Pistons here, and I hope he has that mentality.
You guys mentioned Cade not being, having another level he could hit. He wasn't 100%,
No,
but obviously he was coming off the collapsed lung. We find out that he may have had broken ribs that he was dealing with as well. He came in the playoffs, a little rusty. He 20 games off before the season started. So that wasn't even full Cade of what we saw this season. It was close to an MVP level. Yeah, and we 100%. Think there's another level, but there's even a better version of Cade than what we saw in the playoffs. And he put the team on his back many times. But we saw, I think it was game 3 was a tie game, and he had 3 straight turnovers. He ran out of gas in some of those games, because there's so many times where they run these offensive sets, they really get nothing out of it. There'd be 5 or 6 seconds left, and they just throw it to Cade, hey, save us. And a lot of times he did, but that wears on you. That wears on you throughout a game, and he plays hard on both sides of the court. He plays really good defense, and that wears on you. And coming off a collapsed lung and coming off being off 20 games, it showed itself in that Cleveland series. I wonder if he had been 100%, never had the collapsed lung, never had the injury, if they get past the Cavs, because there was a lot of times down the stretch you could see it just in his body language. He was exhausted.
So I do have a question though, or for your guys' opinion, because we are talking about get a shooter and trade deadline and all this stuff in the offseason. But what if they trade up to get what's the dude from the Pistons? I can't remember his name.
Pistons? You're
From
talking
Michigan?
about the Wolverines.
I mean the Wolverines. My bad.
Lendeborg?
Yeah. What if you trade up to get him? He's not as young as a usual player coming into the NBA, and you can already see with what he did with the Wolverines how good he could be. He could be that very good second for Cade, and I would be okay with that.
He's a plug and play right now. To your point, because he is older, right? Yeah,
100%.
You don't have to wait on him, and he would be active. I mean, he's active. He'd be fun to watch. You pair him with Duren down low. He would be
Duren and Cade and all that. And Robinson, I think he would fit right into this scheme. And you get him in that summer ball, I think you develop even quicker. And I think he could bring the Pistons to that next level if you were to trade up. Because I believe somehow if he I think OKC has pick 12. If he falls to 12, the Pistons could trade up to get him. That's not a bad idea.
And Brian, you mentioned with Bridges and Brunson having that championship pedigree from Villanova.
Opinion. So what
getting Lendeborg, a guy that has been through it and has had huge moments, in a championship run. He has that championship pedigree that you'd like to bring to any team.
Yeah, I believe it. I agree. Did we lose him?
I think Jason's out, and the other guys froze up here.
Oh no, guys, you froze up.
Are we back?
Oh, you're back.
You're good. Oh, good. Okay, good.
Sorry, those storms that hit Jason a minute ago are starting to hit us.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, holy heck.
Over and just make this inside the coach's office, Brian.
Pretty much.
Well, I didn't want to be done already because I had to get on the fun and call you guys out a little bit because I just saw a notification on Twitter that Colt Keith was removed from the starting lineup for right wrist soreness. But hey, you guys keep thinking they can go on a run and make the playoffs. You guys,
that was just me. That was just me.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
Mr.
gonna see
Positivity here.
Tim, you keep. Hey,
I'll take that. Somebody's got to be positive on the show. Like, there's so much negativity.
Like-
I got to live in the world of positivity. Like, somebody
dude
has to be.
I mean, like how perfect Tigers. Dude hits 3 home runs the night before, gets scratched.
Yeah, no, I feel you. But another question, real quick, because Cody brought up in the YouTube chats. He said it's time to trade Duran. And now, do you use that trade as a chance to move up to maybe get Linderbaugh?
I would be okay with that.
Like, because Duran's up for that max contract.
And they're saying it could be up to 40 mil a year.
Yeah, are you willing to pay him up to 40 million a year in the performance that he had last year, especially through the playoffs? Or do you trade him with the possibility to move up in the draft to get a piece to come in as a strong second for Cade? Because I'm not sold on the fact that Duran is the second on this team.
If I'm trading Duran, I think I want somebody that's proven in the NBA right now.
Same.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? Like I don't want to trade Duran to move up in the draft, but I would trade. I know there was some rumors of maybe trade for Duran for Trey Murphy or some things like that, or along those lines. That's something I could live with a little bit more. But I wouldn't want to trade Duran to move up in the draft and get somebody that's unproven, at least at the NBA level. I know there's a lot of guys that are very, very highly touted. It's a very good draft, especially at the top tier.
Yeah.
But I want a proven NBA player who's kind of been through it to be that number 2.
Yeah,
And
I
think one of the good things that the Pistons have going for them is that the Pistons may not want to give him the max contract, but I don't think anybody else does either.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
That's a good point.
Unless you're a desperate organization, right, who needs to make a splash kind of thing, and you weren't a playoff team, but I think they'd be hard pressed to give him a max deal as well. So I don't think the Pistons are in a situation where they have to trade Jalen Duren.
And I think if he would have had a better playoff performance, he could have been up for that max contract,
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
whether here or elsewhere. But he kind of shit the bed in the playoffs. So
Yeah, like if
you
they
know.
would have made the Eastern Conference against the Knicks and lost in 7, but he played good in all 3 series, I'd say, okay, he probably deserves pretty close to a max contract. But you shit the bed in the 2 series and you had maybe 2 to 3 good games the whole time. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. So I think you're right there. I don't think so. I don't think his trade value is very high anyways. You know what I mean? So I don't want to see him go. I think he's a hell of a player and he's young. Yeah, I mean, he's in his early 20s, so he's got room to grow also. So if you can get him for the right price, keep him, but also try to move up in that draft. Try to get that piece, because I don't think, Duran is the second, behind Cade, but I think he's a valuable piece to this team if you can get him for the right price.
Tim,
Just one thing to add about Duran real quick, Brian. Just with Duran, like for me, watching him his entire career, the playoffs, like that 2 to 3 week stretch in the playoffs, that's the first time I've seen him at really any time regress at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was on a trajectory where he just seemed to get better and better and better. And when Cade was out with the injury, he stepped his game up to a whole nother level to kind of carry the team during that stretch. And they almost like didn't miss a beat in terms of wins and losses while Cade was out, because Duran had played so well. He was playing at an all NBA level during that stretch, which made it the playoffs even that more shocking and more disappointing. But it just goes back to, he's a young player, kind of first time to have that spotlight on him and that attention from other teams put on him in the playoffs. And he didn't adjust very well. He didn't handle it very well. But I wonder, being such a young player, that's going to continue to improve and continue to get better as he goes on.
You guys, is there another player in Detroit sports history in your lifetimes that you can think of that is the comparison to Duran? And then my second question is, would we be this critical of him, or would fans be this critical of him if the Pistons weren't the top overall seed? Like if they were like a 5 or 6 and growing through these growing pains, would we say, oh yeah, he's still a guy, he didn't show up in the playoffs, but man, he had a great regular season, he's an all-star, we're excited about him. You know what I'm saying? Like I almost feel like because they were the 1 seed, that amount of pressure and spotlight was put on all those guys even more so. So I wonder if that'd be a little bit different.
So to answer your question about Duran and all that, I'd say Brandon Pettigrew. Like, you really think about it, he was a solid tight end throughout the season, but towards the end and then the playoffs where we made it a couple times, he kind of just didn't show up. And when we needed him the most, that's who I could think as of right now, who kind of was there. Like, hey, he's a solid tight end, he's doing great, or solid player, but then shit the bed when we needed him the most.
It's a good one.
I got a guy for you. Go way back, 90s Red Wings, Keith Primo. A guy that had some great regular seasons, but when we talk about the intensity and the physicality pick up, Keith Primo wasn't there. I remember Don Cherry would call him Prima Donna because he was all he was all the spectacle, all the scoring, but when times got tough and it got really the intensity picked up, he didn't show up.
That's a good one.
Those are all good ones, and like I can't even think anybody. I mean, I could go maybe the whole 2012 Tigers roster.
I was thinking that one, and honestly, the 2006 where they only won one game. I'm like, I think the 2006 team was better than the 12, and I'm like, both of you guys just shit the bed.
You're right.
But,
thanks for bringing. Those are like some of my worst sports memories as a fan.
Oh god, my best Tigers memory was Ordonez hitting that walk-off home run against the A's, and then you get fucking beat 4-1. And it's just like, come on, where were you guys? You should have won.
Clearly the better team too in the World Series.
100%. They just did not show up that series.
Okay, and Eric, you know what's crazy about that? Like, all right, that Cardinals team had a lot of injuries throughout the year, and I think they won the division with like 83 games. So, like, talking about this Tiger team, like all the injuries.
That 06 team was fucking amazing. And
they was.
They should have just. They should have. I wouldn't say swept them, but it should have went the distance, if anything.
Yep, I'm with you.
Because the way they were playing, they were lights out, and then they just played the Cardinals and just. I can't. I don't even know. Because I feel like that was more heartbreaking than the 2012, honestly.
Well, I know exactly what the problem is. It's just, I've said this a bunch of times on the show, but welcome to the life of a Detroit sports fan. It's heartbreak and disappointment, and that's the way that we live, but we love it, and we keep coming back for more of it. So speaking of that, let's move off of basketball real quick. When we were kind of doing the pre-show introductions here, and before Coach, you got into the room, Dan was saying something that you got a pretty interesting take on the college football right now.
God, it's a mess. I mean, right? Like the state of college athletics is in such a tenuous spot, I think, with the transfer portal and with NIL, and I don't think either of them are bad on the surface, but I think it's I don't think the intent is what it is now was not the original intent, right? You're talking about teams having $40 million salaries, like college football programs, instead of initially it was just, hey, like these kids deserve a couple $100 because they're working their tails off and they're earning this money for the university. But it's exploded, and what scares me is, and you're seeing it already, is you have the haves and have-nots, right? In college athletics, you see the teams and the schools that are putting in the money for their rosters and for their athletic programs, and those are the ones that are going to be successful. And if, like, you're not all in as a university in an athletic department, you might as well not even bother because you can't compete. And so I think it's just a weird, tenuous situation, and I can see college athletics going toward almost like a relegation system like they have in European soccer, right? Where you have your teams that are at the top and they're going to stay there, like two separate divisions, like a division that's like 100% on board trying to compete for a national championship, and then you have like everybody else. And I don't like it necessarily, but I think that's where it is right now. And it's fascinating to me how that's changed in just a few years, and I don't know if you can put the toothpaste back in the tube. Like, I don't know if there's any way going back to what it used to be.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and we've talked about this before on the pod. How I think the college football or just in general all college sports is being ruined right now by this NIL deal, because now you have the teams that have money that are able to build super teams, essentially. You know what I mean? So it's the colleges that have money that are going to be the ones that are competing for championships from now on. You're not going to have these lower tier colleges be able to sneak up and get into, the running for any championships anymore. And I think it's hurting anything. And we're also seeing the effects of people going to the NFL now or NBA or anywhere else, because some of these players have the ability now to stay in college and actually make more money in college than they will off of a rookie contract going into a professional sport, which is kind of ruining, the way things that used to be. But I have an interesting question to ask for you.
Jason's back.
Yeah, I saw that Jason's back. Jason, was that a good poop?
Did you handle your athlete's foot of the butt?
But anyway,
did it flare up and just cause a lot of redness?
Jason, don't worry, we weren't picking on you that much.
Yeah.
Listen, I can only imagine. I know how this shit goes, so I can only.
So, interesting question. Since I'm assuming you guys cover all Detroit sports, we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I'm assuming you're all on Michigan natives like we are. Yeah. Recently, and I only know this because me and Jason both have kids who are high school athletes, it is now legal in the state of Michigan for NIL deals for high school athletes. How do you guys feel about that? How do you think that changes things?
So I have a unique perspective, guys, because I've been a high school coach of some kind for over 30 years, and I'm also currently a high school athletic director. So like I'm right in the middle of it, and the good news is that we've been told that it's going to be a small percentage of the athletes, right? Really your top elite level guys. Think Bryce Underwood.
I was gonna say like Bryce Underwood, 2 years ago.
Exactly right. That are going to get that type of deal, or the guy at the kid at Harper Woods, who's a #1 receiver recruit in the state. I can't think of his name right now. Like somebody like that. And then the other part is that it's not supposed to come from anything with the school, right? It has to be everything offsite. It can't come from a school.
Like car dealerships or restaurants in the community, all that stuff.
Social media, yeah, no doubt. The concern though is that you guys know this. I mean, if you guys have high school kids, there are so many quote unquote, I don't want to use the word handlers, but there are so many people with opinions and connections to kids that it's just going to be hard to monitor that. I just think it's going to be impossible, right? And so you might see kids who might not be at that level, but they might be showing up with, some sweet new clothes or something like that. And that's going to be, how do you regulate that? Unfortunately, I don't think you can. And so it's unfortunate because, what's been going on in sports in general, it used to just be the pros were the money makers, and that's where all the issues were. And it's just filtered all the way down. And you see it in a lot with youth sports as well, right? The amount of money and travel teams and all this other stuff going on. And it's a challenge for all of us. And it takes away the innocence a lot of the sport, right? Which we like. And but you also, you got to adapt or die, right? You got to adjust to the times and get ready for it and prepare yourself for it, or you're going to be out of it really quick.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: when you talk about that, you're an athletic director.
Yep.
You start looking at some of these schools that I know it's not the school involved in it, but we're in an area right now that has quite a bit of boosters. I mean, they paid for an entire field for, our football team. That's where I think it's going to take into effect. It's not the school itself in general, but it's the boosters who are going to pay athletes to come to the school district to play for their team. Do you think this is going to give the unfair advantage to certain areas, throughout Michigan that, the boosters have money, they stand behind the school, and they're going to be paying kids to come to their school, and it's going to have the same effect that it did in college, where you're only going to have a handful of teams that are competing for a championship because they're the ones who are able to spend money. Now you're going to start seeing that throughout Michigan athletics, whether it's football, baseball, basketball. I mean, I have a kid in golf. Jason has a kid in baseball. Are we going to start seeing that affect these schools where we're going to see the same schools every year?
Well, the reality, you just got to go. We're following Ohio. Go look at Ohio. We have to look at that. They've been doing it longer than us, so I don't know, because you still have the Catholic schools that can recruit and all that other stuff. And when I was playing football and all that, that's what we went up against one of them, and it was just a whole different ball game. Just way better players, way better coaching staff, and all that. But it might be like that. It might not be. I don't know. We'll have to see, because bigger areas. We're in Lapeer, and then you have North Branch and all that. It's just It just depends, I guess. But what is your take on that, Coach Brown?
Yeah. You know what? I actually have had the opportunity to coach and work at both a Catholic school and a public school, so I see both sides of it. And technically, Catholic schools really can't recruit, right?
Okay.
But to your point, Tim, though, I think that's a scary road that we could be going down, where the boosters and the people that can have access to families or kids can make it be like that. And to be honest with you, and Eric, to your point, I think that's kind of happening already, where the rich are getting richer in Michigan high school athletics, both public and private schools. kids want to go and families want to go now with high school open enrollment and the opportunities to go to other private schools. Like they want to go and be successful. So like there are a lot of families that want to go to Warren De La Salle or Catholic Central, or who now or want to go to Walled Lake Western or probably the Lapeer Lightning, right? Because they've had some success and they've got
some Rochester schools.
Or Rochester, right? Yeah, Rochester, right? They've got the facilities and they've got the tradition. Like kids and families, if they want to, opportunity to be a part of that, they want to go be a part of that. So that's taken away from the high school experience as well, where instead of just playing a sport because you love it and you want to be with your friends and you want to have all those experiences and you grow up playing with each other and sweating and bleeding and things like that, we've lost that a little bit, and that scares me and that bums me out a little bit as well. But I do think, Tim, it's kind of happening already, man, where like the bigger schools and the richers are getting better, and it's just the gap is widening.
Yeah. No, I'm starting to see that already with some of these schools because, like I said, my kid plays golf, and you brought up he plays for the Lapeer Lightning. But when he goes to play some of these tournaments, some of these bigger schools, I mean, they're rolling out there. My kid's, has to carry his damn bag for 18 holes, and all these kids have these real nice, like, roll carts with brakes on them and all this other shit. Like, where's the money for this stuff coming from? You know what I mean? Like, somebody's paying some money for all this shit, and then all of a sudden it's starting to stand out. And these kids are like, they got all the best golfers. You know what I mean? Like, these kids are all shooting like 6, 7 under for a round. You know what I mean? Like, you don't see that across the state. You might have one stand out, but when you have an entire school filled with kids that are like scratch golfers or better, like somebody's doing something to attract all these kids to one area. And I think it is money. And you're going to start seeing more of that now that, that this is, a thing now that NIL has been dropped down to high school athletics, and it does become scary. You know what I mean? Because I think it gives an unfair advantage to certain school districts. And I'm not a fan of it. Not like, and me and Jason have both said this on the show, like somebody offers our kids money to play sports. Do we turn it down? No. Probably not, you know what I mean? Because that's college money, you know what I mean? Like, the college is fucking expensive. Now, are you going to use that to try to, I'm not going to go buy a car with this money, but if somebody wants to give them some money to play some golf sometime, you know what I mean? Like, I'll take the money and put it in an account and let them use it for college, you know what I mean? Because that's the next step. But at the same time, like, this stuff's going to get out of hand, and it's in its early phases, So I think you give this 5 years, I don't know what this is going to look like.
Yeah, there's always been the debate too, right? Like if your kid is an amazing tuba player or is an amazing drummer, like, and they have an opportunity to go to the best school and the best music program in the state of Michigan, are you going to hold it against them or hold it against that family? Probably not. No. Right? But I feel like in athletics, if you have a top-rated quarterback and you don't want him to go hand the ball off 60 times a game running a wing tee offense, and he wants to go throw the ball 50 times somewhere, you feel like there's a lot more scrutiny on that kid and that family that he wants to go somewhere where he's going to help develop his skills a little bit. So, yeah, it's a weird dynamic. But to your point, and like I mentioned before, it does get away from the whole innocence of being a high school athlete and to a degree a college athlete with the money in it, right? And we had the luxury of having TJ Duckett on one of our shows a couple of weeks ago talking about a bunch of other things, but he talked about the big, the Spartan Bob 2001 game where he caught the last second touchdown pass against Michigan. And the thing he kept coming back to was the brotherhood in the locker room during his experience there. And you ask any kid that, right, whatever level of sports, that's what they love, that brotherhood and those memories that they're making with their boys, right? And anything that takes away from that sucks for them, and it's unfortunate.
And Brian, just to add to that, you talked about the open enrollment, and I think that's kind of taken away from the community aspect of where, kids grew up playing together at the youth programs and then playing together at the middle school level, playing together in the junior varsity, and then they all come together at the varsity level. They've played together for 8-9 years, going through the community. All the parents have watched each other's kids grow up, and they become friends. They're teammates. Like, the parents get to know each other. It's a true community. You get to that varsity level, everybody kind of has known each other for a while. We've kind of lost a lot of that. I think that kind of community aspect and players playing together for so many years, where you got kids coming from all over, coming to different schools at different points in their high school careers, and I think that's the part that maybe bums me out the most is kind of what we're losing. At least at college football you expect that, obviously at the pros you expect that, but we've lost a little bit of that community aspect in high school sports, I think.
I think it's come down more to where can I go to give myself the best opportunity to go to the next level.
There's that too. Yep.
That's what it's really come down to. Like, okay, like you said, why would a quarterback want to go to a wing T offense when he ain't going to really throw the ball, when he could go to, a couple miles down the road in the next city over where he's going to throw the ball more because they have more wide receivers and a better offensive line. So, yeah, it's more where is it going to take you next, and, like, it's not about the community thing where it's like, okay, I'm just playing the sport because I love it, and if it takes me somewhere, then great.
Yeah, 100%. The scholarship or the perceived belief that my kid is good enough to get a scholarship, I got to put him in a position to get a scholarship, has superseded and overtaken just the aspect of like, hey, just come play football or come play basketball, come play baseball, right? That's
100%.
I want to hear Jason's take on this real quick because I know he has a kid who's a pretty damn good baseball player in high school right now. Jason, what's all your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, as a parent, we obviously want the absolute best opportunities for our kids. Personally, like there's a lot about this that does concern me. When you start throwing money, pardon me, at kids. Now, Tim, you and I, I'm sure I'm not going to speak for you, obviously, but we try to raise our kids to have some degree of common sense. And we raise our kids to try to not look at all the shiny and all the good potential that there is. You got to look at shit for what it truly is, right? Excuse me. But what I worry about when you start throwing money at student athletes, whether it's in a high school level or college level, when they start seeing dollar signs, I'm afraid it's going to alter their entire fundamental approach as to what brought them to the dance. And when you focus on the wrong thing, you're going to wind up, more often than not, pissing away your opportunity. Because your focus is no longer there, your drive is no longer there, and what is there is unsustainable if you want to make this a career or you want to go up to the next level. I've had conversations with my son, now he's going into his senior year in high school, and he is on a travel team right now, and he's getting a lot of attention. And scouts are starting to pay attention to him and all this stuff. And I'm like, son, I will support you if you want to go to Florida, you want to go to Vanderbilt, because those are his two top choices. Like if he could call his shot, it's Florida 1, Vanderbilt 2, because they have really good baseball programs. But then you're going to get other colleges. Like there was a college from Indiana that came up here recently and looked at him, and they're talking to him. They're talking to his mom, and I can tell he starts to teeter on what could be with all of this additional perks, we'll call them. And like I shut it down. I'm like, do not put the emphasis on that, because that is not what got you to this point. And I worry how many student athletes are going to fall off because of the promises and the grandeurs and the money and the perks and all this other shit. That's one thing that doesn't get talked a lot about. And, as parents of student athletes, if you're a good parent and you really do care about the betterment of your child, you will start having these conversations. Yeah, the perks are nice, and it does come when you have an extraordinary amount of talent, but don't let that be the deciding factor in anything, because that shit's temporary. Whereas, your love for the game, what you bring to the game, what you are as an individual, that's what is sustainable. the riches and the perks will come, and they will continue to come as long as you stay on the straight and narrow. And that's the one thing that I have tried to pound into my kid's head. And Tim, I gotta believe, somewhere along those lines, you and Amy have done the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, it's trust the process. Trust the process. Don't worry about getting what you want right now. Trust the process, and you'll get to where you want to be.
Oh yeah. You got to just keep putting in the work and stuff like that, and just don't worry about all the outside noise, and just keep playing. You know what I mean? Stop worrying about all the other bullshit. Don't worry about money. Don't worry about that. Like just keep playing. And that's what it is. Real quick, I want to touch on the Detroit Lions with you guys. We're looking at, coming off a season where didn't make the playoffs. It was a little bit of a letdown season. We added some pieces to this team in the off season. How do you guys think we're looking this season coming up? I have high hopes, especially with a soft schedule. What do you guys think is going to go on this season?
Yeah, I think it was a quiet off season, but I think they addressed a lot of their needs and took care of a lot of the issues that they needed to address. The most importantly being the center position, getting Kate Mays from the Carolina Panthers in free agency. I think that was their biggest issue last season. It was the center position. They weren't prepared for right now retirement. They should have been, but they definitely weren't, and you could tell that. But by how the center position played out throughout the season. I mean, that first game against Green Bay, the communication was so bad across the offensive line. They couldn't block anybody. Goff had no time to throw. Gibbs was getting tackled as soon as he touched the ball. And that position really never got solidified throughout the season. It became an issue, and it just got worse and worse. I remember the Christmas Eve game against Minnesota. They couldn't even get snaps. They couldn't even get the snap to Goff. It got that bad. So to address that position more than any other makes me feel like a lot better. They've really solidified the offensive line in the draft, getting Blake Miller, a plug-and-play tackle to replace Taylor Decker. The entire roster has really gotten younger. I think they did a really good job this offseason without giving up, a ton of money and without trading, future draft capital or anything of that. I thought they were able to address quite a bit of their needs.
Yeah, I to echo Dan's sentiment, they even with last year, we still feel like they have one of the top 5 rosters in the National Football League. They just do. And next year's schedule shapes up well, especially to get off to a really good start. Back end is a little bit more challenging, but Dan and I have predicted we think they're going to win their division. They should be the favorite to win the decision. I go back to this, and this is where Dan and I have had great back and forths with our shows and our discussions. More than any other sport, football is the one where you have to get great play out of one position in particular to be successful, and that's quarterback. And at times, Jared Goff has played like an elite quarterback, and we can count on 3 fingers how many quarterbacks weren't playing at an elite level that won a Super Bowl. And at times, in big moments in the playoffs, he did not play at a big level. Now, that's not saying he can't do it, but he has to play at an elite level for the Lions to be a Super Bowl contender. And Dan, likes to talk about, the offensive line was banged up and he wasn't, things weren't, when things are perfect and settled, he can do great things. Well, any quarterback, if the situation was great, if you had great receivers, a great running back, and great offensive line, is going to play well. There's going to be times where that position, it's like, hey, man, go win this game for us. And right now, there are a handful of quarterbacks that I would rather say I trust that guy to go win a game for you before Jared Goff. And again,
Patrick Mahomes.
Not even close.
Many, right? There's a handful.
Yeah, Patrick
Week
Mahomes.
Week three. I already told you.
Right there.
So I think there he is. Yeah. So do I think Jared Goff can do it? I mean, sure. I just don't feel like I've seen it.
He already took the Rams to a Super Bowl before.
Correct.
He can do it again. And
so
you guys weren't here last week, but I said week 3, Mahomes is going to tear his other ACL and he's going to be gone for the season.
He's
so
not. Shut your damn mouth.
It's going to happen. It's
So-
going to happen.
mouth.
I'm putting it in the universe. It's going to happen
the thing,
because I can already see the future.
the thing is, I agree, and they scored 3 points in that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And my point is, I'm not saying
that was one of the best defensive Super Bowls ever. The game and all that. That was one of the best defensive games ever.
Regardless, you got to. more often than not, you got to get elite play from that position,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
That's the thing. And so, like again, he has the pedigree. He was the #1 pick. He's been there. I'm not saying he can't do it, but there's been times, like against Washington a couple years ago, some big time turnovers that didn't help out. He's not great on the road, outside. Like,
Well, the year we made all the way to the NFC Championship, we were 8-0 on the road, and he was great. It was great outside.
Playing at an elite level, no doubt.
So I think it's going to come down to is this is my opinion. I think they addressed the offensive line. They got some key pieces back they needed to, and all that. And I think their defense is going to be better. I think Terran Arnold's going to come back. And, I'm worried about Joseph and Brian Branch. We don't know when they're going to come back, but when they do, I think I could see them in an NFC Championship game against the Rams. I think it'll be those two teams.
That would be something.
I think it's going to be those two teams in the NFC Championship game.
Well, guys, my fear, we talked a little bit before the show, and you brought it up with the safeties, but the secondary in general, I think is the underbelly of this team. I think
100%.
I think that the way the team is constructed right now, regardless of how the safeties turn out, they come back and play like we know they can. Like this team, the way it's constructed right now, going into this season, I think they're a playoff team. I think they're going to win the division. I think the difference between them being a true Super Bowl contender or not is how that secondary does come together. Does Terry and Arnold stay healthy and kind of take that next step? Can they get anything out of Rakestraw for the first time going into his third year? How does Reed perform? Can he live up to the contract that they gave him? And then the safeties. That's the biggest issue, right? The safeties. What are they going to get from Kirby Joseph? And some of the things that Dan Campbell has said is really concerned me. There was a press conference a few weeks ago where he talked about, for the coaching staff, the medical staff, and Kirby himself, we've done everything we can to this point. And that kind of feels like a statement you make when you're kind of washing your hands of the situation. And like maybe he's not going to come back, or if he does come back, he's not going to be the same guy that we're used to seeing. That all-pro level safety.
Well,
it's very concerning. And then Branch. Right, we're talking Thanksgiving time, December. Like you're depending on an injured guy to come back and step in and play at a high level immediately, coming off an Achilles tear. And what he's known for as a player is that his explosiveness, right? The way he can fly around the field, the way he flies up into the run game. Like coming off an Achilles tear, man, I don't know if that explosiveness is going to be there, especially coming back that late into the season. It's going to be tough for him just to hit the ground running, and that's what they're going to need from him at that point of the season. So the secondary, to me, is without question the biggest concern of this team going into the season.
I'm right there with you. I think that's my opinion of where I think the softest point of this team right now is that secondary, because I think the offense, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a top 3 offense in the NFL again. It's been top 3 the last few years. They've been one of the highest scoring teams in the NFL. I think they, with Montgomery leaving, I think they did a good job by getting Pacheco. I think Pacheco's going to actually shine this year. I think this is going to be his opportunity, because he wasn't on a run forward offense before. Now he is, you know what I mean? So I think we're going to see the real Pacheco this year, and he's a downhill runner. He's strong. I think he's going to fill that Montgomery role really well. So I think the offense is going to continue on just as well, if not better, because of the additions to the offensive line in the offseason, with getting Cade Mays and then drafting a right guard this offseason. I think the offensive line is going to be back, so I think the offense is going to be right where it's been, maybe even as good as it was 2 years ago. But I think defense is where we struggle. Now, I don't think it's going to be the defensive line. I think the defensive line is going to be, up to par this year. But I think that secondary is where we are hurting this year. And that is what worries me. Joseph, he needs to come back. Bottom line, he needs to come back. And speaking of Kirby Joseph, I have to plug this in here as a pro game note. We are giving away a autographed Kirby Joseph mini helmet as soon as we get to 1,500 followers on TikTok. So please follow the TikTok page, and we will be giving away that helmet right there. It is authenticated. We picked it up at JMC Sports here in Lapeer. So follow our TikTok page, and you can get a chance to win that autographed Kirby Joseph Millie helmet. Other than that, yeah, I think the secondary is the soft point, Terry and Arnold. If he doesn't stop fucking around and getting in trouble, who knows what's going to happen with him? You know what I mean? So they really need to step up. Losing Anzalone, I was okay with it because I thought we needed a little bit of speed at that linebacker position. Did I say linebacker? What the fuck was that accent?
I don't know.
I don't know what that was. That was beer. But the linebacker position, I was okay with that. Jack Campbell, I think, fits in that position very well. But I losing Anzalone out of that kind of hurts, maybe. But, the corners of safety, that is where we've been getting beat the last couple of years, and that's the position I worry about. So hopefully they can figure that out. But I have a very positive outlook, just like I do about the Tigers, because I am Mr. Positivity here on the show. And I think with a soft schedule, I think they can go on to win the North. Now I worry about the playoffs because I think the Rams are stacked. And I think the Rams are the team to beat in the NFL, and unfortunately they're in the NFC.
Yeah, Dan and I think are in similar. We feel the same way. Like this is the year. It's like put up or shut up almost. Like if they don't make the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, do I think heads are going to roll necessarily? No, but I think there's going to have to be some significant changes. And this core, at least few of the pieces, maybe quarterback, right, is just not the guys that's going to take you to that next level or to the promised land. But to me, like we both feel like it's division championship and potentially NFC championship or bust.
No, I'm 100% right there with you. Jason, do you have anything to fill in on that?
No, you guys are echoing my sentiments, so I'm 100% in agreement. I chuckled because a few weeks back we gave our bold ass predictions for the Super Bowl, and I said Carolina and Miami in the Super Bowl, and I have a couple of guys at work. They're like, "You don't really think that's going to be the Super Bowl, do you?" I'm like, Jesus Christ, would you follow the product? It's entertainment. Could we see a Lions Rams NFC Championship? Sign me up, take my money. I'm here for it. I think that storyline wise, that's what the NFL needs, because that will sell. That will garner some ratings. That will garner that's the shot in the arm the NFC needs.
At Ford Field, could you imagine that? I mean, just think about how credible when Stafford came here for the first playoff game, how electric it was. But could you imagine for a shot to go to the Super Bowl, how electric that atmosphere is going to be?
It would be unlike anything that we have ever seen or experienced in the history of Detroit sports. Straight up.
And to have to beat Stafford to do it. Yeah. You got to beat Stafford to get to the Super. All the storylines are there. It's already written itself.
Yeah, it definitely writes itself. And unfortunately, as a diehard Lions fan, I'd have to give that win to the Rams with that roster they put out there this year. But yeah. Other than that, I know we got to start wrapping up. Jason has to go to work. But Dan, I'm going to get a hold of you because I want to get you guys on again next month. It's been an awesome conversation tonight. So I'm going to get back a hold of you to get you guys scheduled back in August. I have a full August. I haven't even started booking it yet. So we need to do that again.
And that's prime football time, man.
Yeah, so I'm going to be booking a lot of football content here in August. So look forward to that. But I will get a hold of you. I want to get you on the schedule here real quick to get back on because this has been a lot of fun. I have a few programming notes. I already covered the Kirby Joseph helmet giveaway, so please follow us on TikTok. As soon as we get to 1,500 followers, we will be doing this. But Jason, do you have that graphic for next week's show?
Oh, hang on. Yes, I do.
Yes, he does.
I thought you were going somewhere else with it, but sorry.
No, all right, so next week, June 23rd at 6:45 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be joined by Detroit Fan Forum. So look forward to that show. We'll be live on the PFC Entertainment Network on YouTube and Facebook and Riverside.com. Can't say Riverside.fm anymore, Jason, because they changed their whole thing since the new update. Now it's just Riverside.com. But yeah, look forward to that show. Going to be another excellent one. Other than that, Dan and Coach, let us know where we can find you guys at.
Yeah, just Michigan Sports Entertainment. Pretty much type that in, pretty any social media network. Facebook's kind of our main hub. We actually just hit 10,000 followers on Facebook. I'm pretty excited about. But that's kind of where everything we do goes to. But we're starting to build up on TikTok. But you can find us on Twitter, Instagram. Our stuff's on YouTube as well. But just type in Michigan Sports Entertainment, you'll find us. And then our main show that Brian and I do is Inside the Coach's Office. We do that every Sunday night, right around 7. We kind of vary if there's a game going on at that time, but kind of 7 o'clock Sunday night is our main spot for Inside the Coach's Office.
Well, awesome. We certainly appreciate you guys dropping by the show here this week. It has been, like Tim said, it has been an awesome conversation. And it's a good conversation when you look down and you're like, damn, where did 2 hours just go? Flew by, right? Tim, do you have a golf report for this week or no?
Oh, I do. I forgot to plug
I was
that in
wondering where the
real
hell
quick.
you were going. I'm
Sorry.
like, Jason, you should have just kept your mouth
I
shut.
saw
We could have
time.
skipped the
You
worst
guys
part of the show.
We could have skipped the whole golf report.
It's that time of the show. It'll be sweet and short. Here's Tim Sheridan with the 2-minute golf score.
This is Tim's 2-minute golf report on the Sports Room Podcast, brought to you by the PFC Entertainment Network. So I'm going to try to do it really fast. So this past weekend, we had the RBC Canadian Open. We had Cauley in first place. We had Matt Fitzpatrick in second. Third place was Hovland. We had a 4-way tie for fourth with Garrett, Stanger, Suber, and Svensson. 3-way tie for eighth with Yella Marahu. Some of these golf names fucking trip me up. Like, I can't pronounce them. I apologize. I murder names. But also Fox and Pot Geeter. But I'm also excited this week because this is major week. We have the U.S. Open coming up this week, and Scotty Scheffler has an opportunity to finish that career Grand Slam and finally finish the career Grand Slam if he can win the U.S. Open. But unfortunately for Scotty Scheffler, he hasn't been playing the hottest over the last few weeks. So we'll see what he can do. So look forward to that. I'll be putting out a lot of content this week on the U.S. Open because I always do during Majors Week. But other than that, that was Tim's 2 Minutes Golf Report, brought to you by the Sports Reel Podcast on the PFC Entertainment Network.
Thank you for that, Tim. Thank you, Coach and Dan. We appreciate you guys. Very much looking forward to having you back on the show very soon. And as my programming notes, I've got a big day on Saturday. Back-to-back shows that you will see live here on the PFC Entertainment Network. It kicks off at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Vinny and I are breaking all things down within MLB on Ball Game, and then at 4 p.m. I will be joined by Eric Scherer, Brian Balf, and Hollywood Q for the latest episode of the Fatal 4-Way, previewing the King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring tournaments as they head to Night of Champions, the latest news in and around AEW, and some other interesting rumors and innuendo that could send shockwaves throughout the future of World Wrestling Entertainment. We're going to be breaking all that down at 4 p.m. right here where you see the Sports Reel Podcast on the PFC Entertainment Network on Facebook, YouTube, and Riverside.fm and or .com, as it were. My bad. And if you have not done so already, be sure to check out our online store, pfcsportsreel.printify.me, for all things Sports Reel Podcast. With that, we appreciate everybody who tuned in live with us and those who will be checking us out on demand on the RSS feed on iTunes, Spotify, all the other platforms. I'm not going to go through the gambit, but we appreciate you all. Go out this week. Be awesome to yourselves and to each other. We'll see you next week right here on the Sports Reel Podcast on the PFC Entertainment Network.
Let's go Tigers! Let's go Scotty Scheffler. I want to see you win one. Just to finish the career Grand Slam. That's all I want to do. That's the goal.